So I'll be recording today's class, and you can always find my classes at kenspencer.com. And today, since there's a lot of charts and arrows and confusing things, I'll also have those posted up there probably sometime tomorrow. But it will be a recording of everything you see in the class and everything we say here, and I will also try to repeat the questions, so we'll be able to do it. But they're over here under classes. And I've already started it, new phones and plans, and then whistle out is one of the links I'm going to do. But if you go down here and you click on my video archive, it'll open. Hang on here. It goes to the YouTube, and basically, whoa.
I think a developer would look like a geek.
I hit the wrong one. That's the one about the apps. Ken's Class Video Archive. So basically it's my YouTube channel, and I have all my previous classes done about, and Mom's 90th birthday party, which we just had. I didn't know that was there. I thought it was private. Oh well, it's maybe because I'm logged in. That might not show up, but there's nothing to hide. Her photos weren't some of the ones that got hacked. So she's not been exposed on the iCloud, and she was happy to know that. All right, we'll talk about that for a second, too, before we get started. Who isn't aware of the... I'm not asking if you saw the pictures. I said, who isn't aware of the fact that iCloud's been compromised because all these nude pictures of, and many of them are fake, of celebrities. In fact, one celebrity says, I couldn't have it on iCloud, I used an Android. Who didn't hear about that? Because I want to know how I have to explain it. Okay, well, so you'll find out when your photos surface in other places. So what happened is, the big news was iCloud was hacked. If it bleeds, it leads, right? That wasn't true in the news. iCloud didn't get hacked. iCloud is very secure. Hackers found not a vulnerability, but found a weakness. And I only want to say that because what happens is, we've all been to sites, our bank sites, you log in, and after about 3 times it says, come back in 3 days, we'll let you try again. So you only have so many login attempts. Well, there was a spot on the Find My iPhone, which everybody's flustered if they've lost their phone and they want to do it, that hackers were able to continually try passwords to gain access not to the iCloud, but to the backup of these celebrities, or quasi, or think they're famous for being famous people. The backups of their phones were stored in the iCloud. And the access they got was because they had weak, guessable, easy passwords. So, but it's Apple's fault that these people had weak passwords. So, if Paris Hilton, I don't think she was one of them, but if it was her dog's name for her password, well, the celebrities, poor them, but they really can't, their whole life is known. Their mother's maiden name, all those little keys that you do for a lot of things are out there and they're abundant. So they were using passwords that were known, and that's how this happened. And they've been working on this for months and months and months and months. So the only thing Apple did to firm it up is make it so now you can only do so many attempts until you get kicked out. But really what it was the password was hacked because it was something they tried, the name of their street, their address, some of those common things. But what happens is their photos were in their iPhone backup, and they were able to go in and extract the iPhone backup. So what's good for us, having a backup be able to be restored, came back to haunt them. But you know what? Many of these celebrities will gain more fame than they ever had before because, Paris Hilton was nothing before the video that got sneaked out a long time ago. So to me, and it's easy for me to say it, don't keep any nude photos anywhere that you don't want anybody to see, If you kept them at your house, you don't want the thief to walk in and say, oh my gosh, I'm holding up that person. Oh boy, they need help. I'll leave. So it happened, but it wasn't iCloud's fault. They've made it so it can't happen again. But again, it's much when you're Apple, when you're Walmart, when you're don't want to say GM, but when you're number one, you always have a target on your back, and that goes back to kind of the reason why there's not a replaceable battery in an iPhone, is because if there was a replaceable battery in the iPhone and somebody sources a cheap battery from China that burns up in somebody's pocket, even though it's not an Apple battery, who's going to get the blame? Apple. So, and their stuff is so secure. It's amazing. But then we just heard, has anybody heard about the Home Depot breach? Virtually every Home Depot store, just like the Target, they think this breach will be bigger than the Target breach. And what it points out is, please don't use debit Visa cards anytime you can get away with it. Even if you say run it as a credit card, you don't necessarily have the same protections. And I listened to a guy named Clark Howard, and I really encourage it. ClarkHoward.com. He talks about that quite a bit and different precautions. And within the next 2 years, though, in the United States, we're going to start having little chips inside of our credit card and our debit cards. The rest of the world does, but that little magnetic strip is, how many remember cassettes or reel-to-reel or VHS tapes, okay? Those are magnetic strips. So you record on a magnetic strip, right? So it's really easy when you put that magnetic strip in for someone to make a recording of it and make a fake credit card or fake debit card and go use it. With a credit card, you're protected. With a debit card, it's up to your institution. They don't have to protect you. Yes?
I just got one of those from Sam's Club last week.
Chip and pin, yeah. So it'll be called chip and pin. And what will happen is it'll have a little chip in it, a special chip that, and the way it works is every time you do a transaction, it creates a new number, and then you'll have your PIN number, your 4-digit PIN that you use like when you go to the ATM or other places. So what happens is they don't know that chip's there. It creates a one number that you don't have to know, but it says it doesn't have a card number any longer. Yeah, you'll have a card number on here so you can phone in and things like that. But that chip will say, okay, here's the number I'm using this time, and you say it's you, and boom, everything works, and it's very secure. The U.S. is getting hit from all over the world, Home Depot, Target, all these places for this credit card stuff because we're the only country that still doesn't do chip and pin. So all the thieves, it's kind of like if there's a pot of money over there, everybody's going to rush to where the pot of money is. So we're getting hit more than we should because it takes a while. Like for instance, I take payments with a Square card. You know, the little Square card reader that I use for that stuff. It will be able to be used chip and pin. And by the way, with all this online stuff, these Home Depot hacks happened in the store. You're probably 100 times safer using your credit card online than you are in a store or at a gas pump. Okay? Any questions on that? I kind of blotted through it, but I think it's important. Go ahead.
These wallets that have the...
Those are...
that's what I...
It's fear about nothing. The sun's going to come up tomorrow, so shade yourself or wear a tinfoil hat. Those things can't be read from somewhere else. It's a contact type read, okay? Those are RFID chips, and those people are pushing that because they can sell you more wallets like that. So, the other thing I'm going to talk briefly about is passwords, because passwords are the keys to the kingdom. And I'm probably going to do a full class on passwords after the new thing comes up, because the beauty of it is Apple has cured our password hell problem because they have a fingerprint reader now. In the new operating system in iOS 8, it looks like, if I go to Amazon.com, my password's stored in my phone very securely, and nobody can get in there. Believe me, it is as secure as can be. And I simply would hit my fingerprint reader instead of inserting my password, It would pull my password out of my very protected keychain and fill in the Amazon site with that, and I've just authorized it. And yes, your finger has to be alive to do it. It senses. It's a biometric sensor. You can't just take it. But that's very secure. The next would be an iris scan and things like that, but I think that's a little intrusive. Then it looks like, oh, I'm taking a selfie. No, I'm just logging into Amazon, okay? I'm not really taking a selfie. So, you know, Apple is really on the forefront of that, but with Apple, everything they do, they take time with it. I was very surprised that the iPhone 5S came out with a fingerprint reader less than 18 months after they bought the company that had that technology called Authentic. To get that to market in that amount of time is amazing. And all the new iPads, all the new iPhones will have that, guaranteed. And I think very soon we're going to have it on our computer also. And that will cure a lot of these password things. But what I want to talk about real quickly is a password protocol. And I don't want to post this online because it's so simple that people, if other people start using it too much, it'll get out there. But let's just take a very simple word like MacNexus. You never want to use, and everybody think of something that's a short, like a dog name or something like that, but not a word that's in the phone book, or not the word that's in the dictionary. So I want to take all lowercase, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and I'm just going to add a number to it. Okay? Now, that's probably not in a dictionary, and it's 9 characters. That's a 1, by the way. Good thing I wasn't a teacher. So I want you to use that password everywhere. Anybody got a problem with using the same password anywhere? Everywhere? Who did? Who spoke up?
We don't have the same password.
No, you wouldn't use this one, but would you want to use this password for your Gmail, for your Amazon, and everything else?
No.
Why not? Because if you're at Pizza Hut and you sign up for their home delivery, and your username is usually your email address, and then you say MacNexus 1, well, when that delivery driver is about to get fired and he decides to go into the database and say, you know, they ordered a lot of that high-end pizza. They might do something. So if he has your email address as your username and you use that same password for Pizza Hut online ordering that you use for your email, he now has the keys to the kingdom. Because what happens if you go to your bank site and you say, I forgot my password. Okay, we'll send you a password reset. So if I'm at Pizza Hut, I want to take and put a prefix that says capital P, lowercase h, PH MacNexus 1. So I'm using the password everywhere, but if I'm at Wells Fargo, what do you think it might be? Okay? If I'm at Amazon, what would it be? Capital A, because we always got to have a capital letter. Capital A, Amazon. If I'm at American Express, what do I use? I can still use the capital AM because it's highly unlikely those would cross-pollinate. Okay? But all I have to do is I remember this, and it can be anything. Just don't make it be a word that's in the dictionary. I'm putting the number at the end because we're logging in with our iOS devices, and you've got to keep flipping back and forth to keyboards. If I put the 1 right here, I'd be changing my keyboards. Also, I put the capital letter at the front because most places require a capital letter, because when I'm entering it on an iOS device, I want to hit the capital letter that, and then it goes off of that. So, again, whatever site I'm at, let's say I'm at American Express, and I type it in, I go, oh, that's wrong. Well, I go, no, I know the main part of it. How can it be wrong? So then I go back and I say, well, was it AX or AM? So I got 2 possibilities. If I'm at Apple, I do AP. At my Gmail, I do GM. And no, I don't use MacNexus 1 for that. But you can do this. If you want to get really tricky, you can also put a special character here, an exclamation mark. If you want to get very secure, you can turn the A into an @ sign, but then there's a little more keyboard juggling back and forth. But you can do things like that. Now, if this got out there and was very common knowledge, the guy at Pizza Hut would know that if you go to Gmail, it's gm.com. I'm not saying this is perfect, but it's a heck of a lot better than what most of you are using because we've had to put in most of your passwords when we work together, so most people are pretty good and pretty secure. But the problem is, you have to write them down. You know, the bottom of the iMac, that little strip of aluminum on the bottom of the iMac, that's for the sticky notes for your passwords, right? So how secure is that? Kind of like these companies that make everybody change their password every 30 days. Well, you're just forcing everybody to write it down. Now, the one problem you run into is if you forget your password, but how likely are you to forget your password? Not very likely, because you just have to remember this part. You know, it could be your street name or something, but just not a word that's in the dictionary. So all you have to do is remember the prefix. Now, don't go change all your passwords. I'm doing it as I create new passwords, I'm changing it to the new setup. On your Mac, on your iPhone, and your iPad, you have a thing called keychain. Keychain is where your passwords are stored when it says, you ever seen the thing? Do you want to store this password? How many say no? How come?
I don't know, I didn't think it was secure enough.
Okay.
I've got one pass.
Got one password, that's good, password manager, and Apple's doing Apple's really getting into it now with all their password stuff. Apple will suggest a password that's virtually uncrackable if you want. But when it does those passwords, you never know what the real password is. If you're on somebody else's computer and you needed to log into your Wells Fargo account, you'd never be able to because it's and you don't remember what it is because it's different for every site. But as we go forward, our iCloud our keychain is synced on the iCloud, so when I enter a password for Amazon here, it reflects on all of my devices. And that's iCloud keychain password. And the beauty of that is I can soon just unlock it with my fingerprint reader. Okay? Any questions on passwords? I know that's not the subject today, but I think it's pertinent with what's just happened with some of these hacks. Go ahead.
On the keychain, is it in your login for your computer that gives you the keychain?
Good question. So I've lost an iPhone. Oh, here it is. Oh, it was only the 5S. It wasn't the 6. Think about it this way. The keychain is built in. First of all, never go in and modify your keychain. You can, but think of your keychain as a read-only thing. There is a comment section. So here's how I find keychain. I go up to my Spotlight searchlight and I just type in KEYC. Okay, so I hit that. I've got these lists of all these keychains, okay? So for instance, here is the router right here, Fireside E26. If I want to reveal the password on this, think about it this way. If you owned an apartment complex, forget master keys for right now, but if you owned an apartment complex, every unit has its own unique key, correct? Or password. And down in the office, in the manager's office, in a box on the wall, is a copy of every one of those keys or passwords, correct? But that box is locked. And it's locked and only the manager has a key to get in to the keychain or where the keys are. So you have a login password on your computer. So if I double click on keychain access, by the way, you can see a whole bunch of passwords. I can filter it down here. I can just say Fireside, F-I-R-E, and see it starts whittling it down. And I'm going to go here to our Fireside network. And I double click on it. And it shows this. And you'll notice I have a comment section. I can put notes in my comments. But please don't put your password in the comments because this is available to everybody. But if I hit show password, it says, oh, we better go get the manager. Go get the manager because we need the manager's key to open up the box. And now I can put in my computer password. And now the box was opened and I got the key. The beauty of that is that same keychain now syncs on the cloud and it's available on all my devices. And trust me, they're not getting into that. And most of your banks and credit card sites and investment sites don't store the password anyway. They have a different level of security. Hopefully in the future, they're going to allow Apple to let it happen with the fingerprint reader. Okay? Don't go in here and modify the password here. Think about it this way. If you decide to, well, first of all, do the keys from your car open up your house? So the key for your car doesn't open your house, just like the keys for your Gmail, or the password for your Gmail. Come on in. The password for your Gmail doesn't work at Amazon unless it's the same one, and hopefully you'll change it so it doesn't. But if you and your spouse or someone else that lives at your house, if you decide to go change the locks to the house, and you don't give them a key, they're not going to get in, right? You have to give them the new key. So if I go and change my Amazon password, I don't change it here. I go into Amazon and I manage my account and I change my password there. Then the next time I log in, it says, Ken, I'm sorry, that's not your password. The one we have stored isn't it. You type in your new password, and then it says, well, do you want to update your password in the keychain? And you say yes, and it puts that new password in your keychain. But I don't do it here. I let the Mac handle all of that, or the iPad or the iPhone handle all of that. Okay? But again, if you change the keys to that, you could go to Home Depot and just grab some keys, and they're not going to work in your lock. Because that's like the keychain. You can't just put in a new password there. You have to go to the site, change the password, and do all that. All right? So sorry to harp on passwords. I know it's a big deal. It's going to get easier. Most of the calls I get are, Ken, I'm in password hell. Please come save me. All righty. Let's get on with the subject at hand. Yeah, that's kind of how we feel about passwords. But that's kind of how we're feeling now about the cell phone plans and what to do in different cell phones. So the original iPhone was introduced January of 2007. Some of you at the general meeting seen this. I'm going to pop right through this quickly. But the original iPhone, it's amazing. 2007. It was introduced January 9th, 2007. It came out June 29th of 2007. You could go stand in line like some of us did to get the copy of it. And it's amazing. For their first phone they ever made, it's really held the test of time, and it's still a very pertinent piece of equipment. So we're going to talk about size, because when it comes to phones, size matters, okay? And the original iPhone was 3.7 inches. When we talk about size, it's the diagonal measurement. The diagonal measurement. That's like your screens, your TVs, your computer monitors, your laptops. That's size comparison. So I've got some things here because the iPhone 6 is coming out. Oh, shoot, hang on. I got to show you this. This is the coolest thing. Here we go. Apple.com/live. This was supposed to be on the screen in the beginning. September 9th at 10 a.m. it will be webcast. Okay? The old days it was funny. We got a big group together and we'd get in 3 or 4 cars and go down to, when the iPhone was first introduced, we got Pete and we got Lisa. Al, I think you went with us a couple times, but when the iPhone was first introduced, we're going down to Macworld and we're on these crappy phones that have, it was almost the internet back then. I mean, I can't believe how bad this was just in 2007. And we're reading all the blogs about, yeah, they're expecting this. And we knew there was, we knew an iPhone was coming, but we had no idea what it was. And so then we go and have breakfast at Mel's Diner right by there because the keynote's going on and we're reading all these blogs and they go, Steve Jobs is up there, and it was his finest presentation ever. If you ever get a chance, go back and see the January 2007 keynote. It was amazing, and it was a seminal day for Apple itself. But he goes, yeah, and today we're introducing 3 new things. And it says, a new iPod, the best one ever, an internet communicator, and a phone. And then he says it again, we're producing, and then you got to, oh crap, it's all in one thing. And that was what really blew people away. And when I describe this to people, I say, this is a computer that happens to make phone calls. Your iPhones and iPads are actually more capable than most of your computers for a lot of things. Anyway, this is the countdown. It's at Apple Live, so apple.com/live. All right, back to the keynote. So iPhone size measured diagonally. The current iPhone 5S is 4 inches diagonal. iPhone 5S, okay? The 4.7-inch iPhone 6 I have right here. I'll pass it around. And you'll have the ability to do something, and they call these phablets. It's 5.5 inches. So if I get the 5.5-inch iPhone, maybe, sorry, oh. I hate that vibrator. Anyway, I might not need my iPad mini all the time, and what I may do is skip the mini and go to a big iPad. But I'll pass these around. These are mock-ups. These are very expensive mock-ups. I spent hours on them. I'm not a leak from China, but the thickness is pretty close to what it is. I specifically sourced this cardboard, and it's very strong. So we have the 5S. We have the 4.7-inch iPhone 6 and the 5.5-inch, and these are from virtually confirmed dimensions. And actually what I'll do is at the same time we could pass on these. I need this back. That's an original iPhone. All right. So moving right along. The big choice is going to be what do you want to do? We hope that as it shows here, when you go to the bigger iPhone, the print and the logos and everything will be larger. Rather than just making more room for more logos, we hope that it's going to be just a larger of what goes on, because for maps and things like that in your car, I think it's appropriate. This is what the backs would look like, which surprisingly enough is the piece of paper that's glued to the back of the cardboard was from this shot right here. So, and the front of the screen on these are very scratch resistant. I can print new ones. That's the size of them up together, and somebody is cute, and they have a little Android guy in the back there. Now, this leaked just yesterday. An ad from one of the 2 large Chinese telecom services, and what we think. So first of all, this is the battery life. Got 2 here. Can anyone read Chinese? Well, come on. What help are you guys? 2,100 hour battery life, or 2,100 milliamp battery life. Because as the screen gets bigger, it uses more and more energy. Therefore, the battery has to be bigger. Just like the iPad mini versus the full-size iPad. The full-size iPad uses a lot more power, but their battery lives are almost equal because you have more room for a battery. And batteries do weigh a little too, and that's a concern. Apple, I think, strives too hard to make things so thin. I'd rather have them make it a little thicker and have a little longer battery life, but they haven't asked me. So it looks like these are the 3 colors from the shapes. You'll notice it's more of a rounded edge, kind of like the iPhone 3G, 3GS, which I'll also pass around. Bit of a rounded edge, but it will be all aluminum. And the screen is going to have a smaller bezel right up near the edges. So realistically, even though it may be a 4.7-inch or a 5.5-inch, it won't be a ton bigger on the outside. It will be, but because you've got less of a border on the sides. There's indications in the 5.5-inch that it will have an optical stabilizer in the camera. The camera may have a bezel around a ring that extrudes a little bit. So in other words, you won't have the shaky shots. And I got to tell you, Apple has done a fantastic job on their cameras on the iPhones ever. And what's the best camera in the world? The one you have with you. And that's the reason for you guys, I'm going to probably get the 5.5 inch just for you guys so I can have the best camera. We know it'll be a fingerprint reader. The question is whether it'll have a sapphire screen over it. Now, the iPhone 5S uses sapphire for the button where you do the fingerprint reader. Sapphire is brittle, but Apple's patented technique, and Apple has basically invested huge into sapphire. Yeah, sorry, the weight on those aren't accurate. I thought about adding little things in there to see, but you know what's funny is the bigger one, that's fine, just pass it around.
That newest phone is, oh, that's yours.
Yeah, just to show you, because that's kind of the rounded base like it. That's the 3GS. As it gets bigger, if it's the same weight, it's going to feel even lighter. So, you know, it's the batteries what really does the weight on this. But it's really amazing what they fit in there. A gyroscope, an accelerometer, you know, a compass, chips, memory, battery. Do you want to do it now?
Yeah.
Good time. The secretary and our board of directors for MacNexus, Robert Ress, is going to talk to us about the self-nomination in the election, please.
Okay, as part of our annual meeting, we have an election for members of the board. This year, the offices are vice president, and there are 2 director-at-large positions. The process is...
I'm not meaning like me. That, you don't have to be large to be a director-at-large.
The process is basically you need to fill out and sign a self-nomination form. Forms are due today at noon. I will be down in the Grace Cafe around break time in case anyone is interested and doesn't have a form.
And, you know, I'll tell you, it's important. It's a volunteer-run organization, and it's a good spot for you to have a voice in it. And, you know, I'll tell you, we never get a lot of people. And for me, self-nomination, that's always kind of, you know, an ego thing, a humility thing. Don't be like that. It's just, if, you know, you don't want to be volunteered to do it because you may not have the time commitments. The time commitments aren't that big. We have a board of directors meeting once a month. Directly after this, we take a little break for lunch, and then we go in and have our board of directors meetings. And once a year, we have the budget meeting. And the rest of it, a lot of it's transacted online and things like that. And it's, I don't know, Bob, I don't think it's not a huge time commitment. It really isn't. It's really just a way to voice yourself. So please don't be bashful. Don't be so humble. This was another shot of it here. So pretty slim. I don't know. All right. Another quick size comparison chart, because size is really going to be what it is because they don't know much about it. They're going to charge more for the big one because it makes sense, but there is indications they may put more into it just to be that. If you have an existing phone, now's the time to sell it, or at least lock in the price. If you go to Gazelle.com, and there's other places, I'm just using Gazelle as an example, you can right now say, I've got an iPhone 5, I want to turn it in when I get my new one. Well, they'll give you up till October 10th to ship it to them. But as it gets closer to the release date, supply and demand, the prices will drop on what you can get for your phone. Okay? Today we're going to talk more about plans, but just quickly, I ran this 2 weeks ago. So here was an iPhone 4, it's worth $60. Here's an iPhone 4S, it's worth $100. Here is an iPhone 5. You might have paid $199 for your iPhone 5 2 years ago. And look at this. And when it says unlocked, if you're off contract and it's an AT&T phone or any carrier, if you're off contract, they'll allow you to unlock the phone. Unlocking it means it can work on any carrier. And we're going to talk a lot about this whole 2-year sentence that you get when you go with some of the major carriers, because that's a big deal. The iPhone 5S, I could make money on my iPhone 5S by selling it. More than likely, if it's a 5S, you're not out of contract because it's only a year old. All right? So, We were confused about size. Now we're going to get confused about other things. I'm going to blast through it because I'm going to go in more detail. Well, we talked about size and storage. Unlocked, I just briefly talked about. Should you buy a used iPhone? Only if it's from a reputable large seller. Because iPhones, like any device, as they age, the battery gets weaker. But also, you never know what's happened with that phone. And in fact, these days, did anybody hear about the legislation California passed about the kill switch in phones? Okay. Apple has that already. Apple had it in there since iOS 8 came out. I'm sorry, since iOS 7 came out. And what that means is, if someone stole my phone and I have Find My iPhone turned on, they can't activate it, they can't do anything with it, it's locked down. Even Apple can't open that and make that available. So what that's done is it's cut the theft of iPhones dramatically. Because only stupid people or stupid criminals will take them now because they can do nothing with them. They're locked, they're a brick. So that's, if you buy a used phone, you never know if you buy off eBay. The other thing is, there's places, your SIM card and in the base here, there's sensors that can tell if it got wet. And if it got wet on the inside, because on the inside, moisture can really cause a problem because the circuit boards can corrode. So I don't recommend it. Apple does have refurbished, some of the AT&T, some of the larger places have refurbished phones. But the price you can get new phones for, I was at Costco yesterday. Costco now is carrying the iPhone on Sprint, Verizon, and AT&T, not T-Mobile. And they're carrying iPads now too. $77 for an iPhone 5S. So, and I think the iPhone 5S is going to be even lower than that once the 6 is announced because it's so much yesterday's news. And of course, my iPhone 5S will be terrible at that point. You know, it's all of a sudden going to not, well. Oh, and by the way, mine will be for sale. I have a untouched ever by human hands, always in a case since day one with a screen protector on it. It's a 32 gigabyte black version. It will be available a couple days after the new one's announced. And I like selling my phones to people. By the way, it does have Apple Care Plus on it. So that's an extra $100 bonus that it's got still another year's worth of coverage on it, which I always do because it helps the resale value. So the line will form here at the break if you want to get in line for my phone. What I do is I pass the phone along. You saw that I could get $300 for this with the Gazelle. Actually, more than that because that was the 16 gigabyte. What I do is I look at the price of the new one. I try to just basically say, okay, whatever I'm going to pay for the new one, I sell the old one for. And which is very reasonable usually. Everybody that's bought my phones before is very happy. So if it's from because the other thing is there's an outside chance, since I have the Apple Care Plus, I have an issue that I might have them take care of. Come on, get off my phone. There we go. They may just replace it. I may have a brand new one available. So, and go through here if there's any questions. Do you have to buy Apple cables? With the new connector, the Lightning cable, buy either Apple brand cables or look for a thing that says MFI, made for iDevice, made for iPod, if it has that on it, Apple's approved it, because the new connector, the cable actually has a computer chip inside it is why it's expensive, because medical devices are going to be attaching to this and other things. So don't buy cheap cables because it could create a problem. Very important. And I'm Mr. Cheap, and I buy MFI cables. So monoprice.com is a great one because they have a lifetime warranty and their prices are reasonable.
I'm sorry, who?
Monoprice, MONOPRICE.com. If you order it, it'll be to you the next day. But if you need cables for virtually anything or wall mounts for TVs, cases for the phones, that's where I get this probably, I think, the $4 case for mine. So, how much data do you need? Now, you guys are going to have to do some, well, how many here are thinking about upgrading to a new phone, I should ask? Okay, and how many are thinking it might be time to change carriers? Okay, and maybe more people, I'm surprised, maybe more hands later. So we'll talk about that and we'll get more carrier specific after the break. Excuse me. But data is what makes the iPhone work the way it does, is being able to connect to the internet. When you're at home and you're on Wi-Fi, you don't use any data because you're using your home internet. When you're at Starbucks or McDonald's or at a hotel, you're using it. Like here, you're not using any data here if you're on the Wi-Fi. So the best way to do it is, and this is where you need to do a little bit of work before you decide what you're going to do with plans, is go see how much data you've used historically. You can look on your phone and see, but realistically, it's best to log into your account, and sometimes they'll have charts, and sometimes they'll do that, or go to your specific carrier's store before they get busy on September 19th is when we think the phone will come out. Go and find out, and they'll give you an idea of what you're using for data. Now, as I say with everything, don't think how much data you're using now. Think how much data you're going to be using 2 years from now. Okay? Because more and more data is being sucked up all the time. I have an unlimited AT&T plan. I have a 5 gigabyte limit till they slow it down a lot. It's unlimited, but since I have LTE up to 5 gigabytes, I get it real fast. If I go beyond 5 gigabytes, it's really slow. And I came really close 1 month. But my average is under 2 gigabytes. Probably my average has been about 1.8 or so. And I actually chart mine month by month so I can, because I like to know, and I'm a heavy user. So, think about it, because the new plans, it's just like going to a cafeteria where you choose, not a buffet where it's all you can eat, but a cafeteria where you choose what you want. How many minutes do you want? And then, by the way, most of these plans now come with unlimited voice and unlimited text, because nobody's calling anymore and everybody's texting, and with iMessage you don't need text, and text costs them so little, but they're charging for the data. It used to be the other way around. You got the data thrown in when you bought the minutes from them. What does unlimited data mean? It depends on who you ask. We'll go through that with somebody's train whistle. Do you want to pay for your iPhone front up? Well, probably up front. Probably not if you can avoid it, but in the plans I'll discuss, and this is where it's a little bit gray. I'm going to talk about the plans more, but with Verizon and AT&T and with Sprint, with a 2-year commitment, we'll subsidize your phone. Now, I'm going to just use the iPhone 5S as an example. This, when it was new, 16 gigabyte AT&T, Verizon, Sprint, you paid $199 for this, okay? And how many of you paid over $50 in tax? Probably didn't notice it, but you did, because it's based on the full value of the phone, which is $650. Now, so I'm there at AT&T and I say, okay, I'll take this phone with a 2-year contract and I'll pay you $199. And it's locked. And at the end of 2 years, when I'm off contract, I can get it unlocked and I'm a free agent. Or I can sign up for a new 2-year prison term. And Verizon's the same way. Now with AT&T, they've allowed us to grandfather in. Who here has the original unlimited AT&T plan? The original. Oh, Al, we're the holdouts, man. And we're getting fewer and fewer. How many here at one point were on the Verizon? At one point, were on the Verizon unlimited plan. Okay, and are you any longer? What Verizon did is, when you come in to get a subsidized phone, they make you upgrade to their newer plan because you're a data hog. Because that's what they were trying to eliminate. So Verizon is your friend. AT&T just don't get good reception. And anyway, but more and more, what they're doing now is you're buying buckets of data rather than the old unlimited. And the iPhone use on the internet, more than Androids, more than anything else, uses more internet than anywhere else. And what's that tell you? That tells you it's getting used for more things. It really is amazing. But if you pay for your phone up front, you're not committed to a contract. You're a free agent. You can go anywhere. You can sell your phone after a year. And what some of the cell companies have done now is they've got another way of doing it. Rather than My screen went huge. Oh, thank you. There. Rather than pay for the phone outright, you can pay for your phone over payments over 2 years, and they don't surcharge it or charge they don't do it. It's just making it easier for you, but you're still paying for the phone outright. And part of the change is the U.S. is really the only country that did the whole subsidized phone thing. And to me, when I think about it, it's really amazing because $199 sounds a lot better than $650. And as an Apple stockholder, I start to go, are people not going to go here anymore? Well, people are going to go here because it's so good, but that's why Android's giving me a run for their money. But you know what? It's just like in PCs versus Macs. PCs were dominant, and it was the race to the bottom. Who can make it cheaper than the last guy and cheaper? And when you're going price sensitivity, there's no loyalty. It's if a guy can beat it by $1, they're going to go to Dell, they're going to go to HP. That's what's killed the PC market. It's become a commodity. That's the problem, and they're coming out with some amazing Android phones. But it's a race to the bottom. And it's good because it's giving Apple some competition. But there's some things that the Apple iPhone and the whole infrastructure between all the devices that work out that really make it nice, so you'll stick with it. And there's more stuff coming with that. But I think it's pony up at $650. Maybe the iPhone 5C will be $350 when the new one comes out. The 5S be $450 or something like that. So, but remember, most of the carriers will let you pay so much per month to be on an upgrade cycle. Every carrier is different, and I couldn't get into them all because everyone's different. Your first thing is you pick it's like the inkjet printers we talked about. Doesn't matter how much the phone costs, doesn't matter how much it is, it's how long the commitment is and how much you pay per month for the service, and then you'll work out the details of the phone because $650 pales in comparison if you don't get a contract and you can save $1,200 over 2 years. That makes paying for the phone a lot easier. So you're only, because $199 versus $650, you're in $450 difference. So, if my math was right. All right. I'm going to talk more about whistleout.com. The link's on the website. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I have a question for you. I don't have an iPhone yet, but I'm going to finally get one.
That's why you're here.
But let's say I get a plan and I'm paying $199 a month.
No, $199 is the price of the phone.
Okay, but okay.
Who's your current carrier?
Verizon.
Okay. And you have 2 people on your plan?
No, just me.
Just you. And do you have a smartphone now or just a regular, what they call?
Just
We don't call them dumb phones, they call them feature phones.
Yeah, it's not a smartphone.
Okay. So how much a month are you paying?
Right now, I'm only paying $40 a month.
Yeah. Generally speaking, because your phone doesn't use data or the internet, you're going to add on to that $30 or $40 a month.
Okay.
But it used to be that was like the blanket thing. Now you have different things. And I've got a lot of plans here on the chart. And believe me, you'll be lucky to have any hair left because you'll be pulling it out after you see some of these plans. But you're at the perfect spot because you're a free agent right now. You're probably off contract with them. They're probably offering her a feature phone. You can get this one for free if you sign up for 2 more years. And you're going, nope, the iPhone's coming out. I can wait. I waited for 9 years for the iPhone to come out. I bought every phone before that because I was like, oh, the next latest, greatest phone's going to come out. And so I would buy my phones off contract. But yeah, so hopefully it's a little clearer when we go through it. Well, or muddier, but let's see how it goes. But hopefully this will answer it. But you have the component of voice, text, and data. And they're not just all wrapped into one now, and it is kind of nice because it's more of an a la carte menu, kind of like we wish our satellite and TV companies would do, would give us an a la carte menu. There's competition. There's pressure on the plans. Now, while I say Android and everything is a race to the bottom on pricing, it's okay if the cell phone carriers have a race to the bottom on pricing because we all benefit from that. And believe me, they're making tons of money. And anyway, international usage. If you go to use your iPhone overseas, T-Mobile lets you use data for free if you have one of their better plans on it. But otherwise, you need to make sure you don't use it overseas. If you have an AT&T or Verizon and you haven't activated a special international plan or turned it off, because I know people that come back with $1,800 bills and they didn't even use their phone. It just happened to be occasionally checking for mail. So that's the call I don't mind getting from you guys, or go to your carrier and say, and they've done better with their international plans. So even if you don't think you're going to use it over there, it costs you nothing to activate the international plan before you go, because that way if you do use it, you're going to get a better rate, okay? But be careful. Now, so you go over there and you get an $1,800 bill and you come back and you say, man, I didn't do anything. You didn't tell me. It's not my fault. I'm a victim here. Oh, well, how about if we lower your bill by, we'll cut that in half for you. So instead of getting shot, you just got stabbed, okay? All of a sudden, $900 sounds pretty good. I think none is better than $900. So be careful. Because we all read that contract when you signed up, right? On page 14, paragraph C. So careful. Forewarn. And the carriers are pretty upfront about it. They'll work with you and let you know. But if you're going for a long time overseas, that's where you want an unlocked phone. And you go over there and you go to the airport, or right outside the airport, you go one of the final these kiosks and say, I need a SIM card. And you put a SIM card in your phone, and then you're using your native there and using their stuff. Now, obviously, your phone number is going to be different, and you can't call, if you call back home, it's an international call at that point. But if you're leaving for a length of time, that's what you can do. And by the way, if you have an iPad that's both cellular and Wi-Fi, like some of them are, they're always unlocked. You can always put a SIM card in there. And in Europe and Asia, the cell phone prices are very, very economical. Okay? T-Mobile's having a test drive. I think it's still active. You go in, or you go online and you say, Ken said that 5S is pretty nice, and you're going to find out today how I really am going to pimp you guys for T-Mobile a lot. In fact, a couple of you have some T-Mobile color, magenta color things on. But T-Mobile is saying, we'll let you test drive. They have done a tremendous job increasing their network. In other words, it used to be pretty bad coverage, about as bad as AT&T. And they've done a great job, and they say, come try our network. They'll put a $699 charge on your credit card, a hold. They'll send you an iPhone 5S for free, let you use it for a week. You go to the T-Mobile store, and you give it to them and say, thank you very much. And then within a few days, your charge is off of your credit card, and you've tried it out. You tried the 5S, but more importantly, you tried their network. You're going to find I'm pretty high on T-Mobile. I'm not there yet because I still have the unlimited plan here, but I'm ready. I've been doing a lot of testing, and I'm ready to make the switch. I'm pretty close. So, but I've had a lot of clients go to it. They're very, very happy. T-Mobile is branding themselves. Does anybody remember 7-Up, the Uncola commercials years ago with the Peter Max posters and everything? Well, T-Mobile says they're the uncarrier, and they're the ones putting pressure on AT&T and Verizon to lower their prices. And that's no mean feat. It's because AT&T tried to buy T-Mobile, and it didn't work, but T-Mobile made a bunch of money because there was a clause in there that they'll get so much money if it doesn't happen. And there was a rumor that Sprint was going to buy T-Mobile, and Sprint knows that their reputation is so bad that they were going to use the T-Mobile name, but now that's kind of fallen out of favor too. So, with your current device, we've got the new operating system come out. So here's the game plan. September 9th, we're going to, those of us that are real geeky, going to sit in front of our computer and listen to everything. And within a week, the iOS 8, the new operating system for our iOS device will come out. If you have a 4S or newer, it's a free upgrade. I've beta tested it. It's really good. It's really nice. Don't worry. It's not like all of a sudden everything gets weird. iOS 7, things got a little strange for people, but there's just a lot of really neat things it can do. We'll have classes on that, both within Power Mac and here and on iOS 8. But but it'll be a free update for you if you have an iPhone 4S or newer, or an iPad 2 and newer. So it's really inclusive. The original iPad won't be on it, and anything iPhone 4 and earlier won't be able to come to it. And it's really a horsepower issue. It's part of the chip. At the same time, we think they'll be announcing Yosemite for the Mac, which is 10.10. It's macOS 10.10, Yosemite. And it'll be out very soon because the two kind of work seamlessly together, and that'll be a free upgrade for your Mac. If you currently can run Mavericks, you can run Yosemite. Go ahead, Ed.
They wrote me and asked me if I wanted to try the beta.
That's because you signed up for it, probably.
Well, and it said my computer wasn't big enough.
Maybe not enough memory.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't encourage people to run the beta.
It wasn't memory, it was,
Storage space.
no, it was power.
Are you running Mavericks?
Yeah.
No, I'd like to see that then, because that's interesting. Go ahead.
Well, I've got a different question.
Okay.
But if I had my own phone, purchased, what would the T-Mobile per month generally cost?
I'm going to go in. I've got the plans, but that's a good question. But who was your phone with originally? AT&T?
Verizon.
Verizon.
Yeah.
Is it which iPhone is it?
Well,
The 4?
It was the 5. I had it stolen. So now I have.
Did you track it?
No, I had just had it turned on. I had the app on there, but I didn't know how to use it.
It's not the app. It's when you're into iCloud. All right. Well, anyway,
Well, that's another-
so that won't. Yeah. Are you still on contract with it too? Right.
Yeah, for another.
So it's like people that buy a new
I
car
had it for a year and a half.
and they're upside down the payments and it goes away and they don't have insurance and it's like you're still paying for that. Yeah. So you'll be up pretty soon.
December.
But if it was you asked about can you go to T-Mobile,
They allowed me to switch over to my old phone,
which is what?
a flip phone.
Okay, that can go to T-Mobile.
Yeah.
And,
But
oh, actually, if it's a Verizon flip phone, it won't go to T-Mobile. It won't go to T-Mobile. Verizon and Sprint use a specific network called CDMA. And anything prior to the iPhone 5 won't be able to go over. But if you have an iPhone 5 or newer, if you have a Verizon phone, you can go to T-Mobile, you can go to AT&T. The only one you can't go to is Sprint.
Can you buy a free unlocked 5 with the 2, with CDMA and GSM?
So a 5, if it was a Verizon phone, it's got CDMA built in, and it was unlocked from day one. So in other words, and I don't want to get in the weeds on this, but if you have it on, you're under contract to Verizon, but they're not using the SIM, they're using CDMA. And I go over to Europe, I'm still paying my Verizon bill. Imagine you can afford to go to Europe, you can pay your Verizon bill, but anyway, I go over there, I put a SIM in it because the SIM part of it is unlocked on iPhone 5 or 5S. In fact, the best world phone up till now is a Verizon iPhone 5 or iPhone 5S. It works on virtually every carrier band there is, and it's unlocked. But you're still under contract.
Can you buy one from Apple with the CDMA and GSM?
Yeah, so actually that's a great question. Do I have to go buy, but the crux of the question is, do I have to go to Apple to buy my phone, or do I have to buy my phone from Verizon? No. You can buy your phone online, and you have 4 choices. Or online, when you go to the Apple Store, do you want us to ship you a Verizon phone, an AT&T phone, a T-Mobile phone, or a Sprint phone? And it comes to you, and you activate it online and do everything. Or I can go to the Apple Store, and you'll choose which phone you want from the carrier. Or if you go to Verizon, they're not going to sell you an AT&T phone. But in fact, the majority of the phones, and I don't know, it hasn't been verified, but I have a feeling the S will probably have all of them in there, and they'll all be the same. Because there's a Korean carrier and there's a Chinese carrier that use some other different technologies, TDMA and different things like that. But if you get a Verizon one, you can get it from anywhere. So that's the next question is, where do I buy it? Well, if you buy it from Apple or you buy it at the Verizon store or you buy it most places, you're going to pay sales tax because of lovely California, one of 2 states that charges sales tax on the full amount of the phone, not what you paid. That can be 50, 60 bucks. Walmart, Sam's Club, and the wireless kiosks at Costco only charge you for the only charge tax on the subsidized price. How they get away with it, I don't know, but it's sure good to know. So you can save 40 bucks. Okay? And the only one that you can't get I don't know that you can get T-Mobile at Costco. And Costco's carrying iPads, by the way, now. They have iPads in the main Costco thing are the Wi-Fi only iPads, but you have to go to the cellular kiosk to buy an iPad that's cellular and Wi-Fi. In other words, one that you could use anywhere. So what's happening with iPads? We think there's going to be a refresh of the iPads. Generally speaking, iPads always got updated a month later in October, but I wouldn't be surprised. I'm 50-50 on whether they'll be announced now. I mean, it's kind of like, what's it going to be, 8-hour keynote? I don't know. So, and then can you run out of Yosemite, and Ed, we'll check your instance for there. I don't know why. Well, you don't care what can I, well, when can I get the latest and the greatest? All right. Okay, time to pull our hair out. Now, I have to tell you, I built this, and while I built it, plans changed, and I'm not guaranteeing the accuracy. Don't worry about writing this down. I'll have all this posted on the website at kenspencer.com. Yeah, you can take a photo of it if you want. But I've got T-Mobile at the top because they're the one I recommend. Now, I'm going to get a little bit greedy here for a minute. If you decide to go to T-Mobile, send me an email, and because I'm Ken, I'm going to get you $25 off your first, well, not your first, but within 90 days of your T-Mobile bill. Now, I submit to bribery, but what T-Mobile has is a referral program. So once you're on T-Mobile, you can evangelize T-Mobile also. It's a pyramid scheme, okay? So what will happen is, once you're on T-Mobile, you're going to save 25 bucks if you have me send you a referral link. Now, I can only do up to 10 of those, or 12 of those, 10 or 12 per year, okay? But what I'll do is, I'll also, you should, if you're with a friend or somebody else, one person sign up and then refer the other. I don't need to get that, but the big thing is, if you get it from me, you're going to get 25 bucks off within 90 days of activating. And I really, really, really like T-Mobile, and all of T-Mobile's are no contract. By the way, T-Mobile's stepping up to the plate. Who here has iPads that are the Wi-Fi and cellular iPads? Okay? They're unlocked. They'll work on T-Mobile. You can walk into any T-Mobile store. I believe they charge you $10 for a SIM card, and you will get 200 megabytes per month for life of free data. Okay? Or, even better, they have a plan, because how many of you that have these or know the old AT&T plan? It's like, what is it, 15 bucks a month for 250 megabytes? Well, I just told you how to get 200 megabytes for free. Or, if you go to T-Mobile and get a referral, you get 1 gigabyte a month for $10 a month. Up until the end of then they think, actually it's free until the end of this year, depending on whether you buy it or not, and keep going through. But in fact, I got an iPad Retina, and they just charge me per month for it. I like to pay for things up front, but they charge it per month, and then if I ever want to just pay it off, then I just pay it off, and I stop getting my free 1 gigabyte a month. So anyway, it's a great plan. If you have a cellular one, my mom never uses hers out of the house. She's on Wi-Fi all the time, but just in case she's at a hospital or something like that, I went over and I got a T-Mobile SIM chip in it. No muss, no fuss. One-time fee to get the SIM card, 200 bucks a month for free. I'm sorry, 200 megabytes a month. 200 bucks a month for free. Yeah, I want that deal. Isn't that what the commercials sound like sometime that they're giving you? Yeah. Boy, and you get a $25 referral on top of that. So it's T-Mobile's really good. Now, what they have is their plans. Now, to try deconfuse this. They have plans at $40, $50, $60, $70, and $80 a month per phone. These are individual plans. The talk and text are unlimited. And actually, you know what? This is probably, let's break before we get into these plans. Because we usually take the break at 10:20. Now let's go through these. I'll do the individual plan. Sorry. So in the $40 plan, you get a half a gigabyte of data a month, or 500 megabytes. So that's how that works. The $50 plan gives you 1 gigabyte of data. The $60 plan gives you 3 gigabytes. The $70 plan gives you 5 gigabytes of data. And by the way, all of those plans allow you to tether or make your phone become a hotspot, and that whatever data you buy, if you buy the $50 plan and you get 1 gigabyte of data, that 1 gigabyte of data, they don't care if you use it on the phone or tie it to tether it with an iPad. Okay? But they have an unlimited plan up there for $80 a month, and you get 5 gigabytes of tethering data. Your phone has unlimited. And T-Mobile, when they say unlimited, they mean unlimited. You'll notice no overages. If you ever go over your data limit, let's say you're at 3 gigabytes, in 1 month you're traveling a lot, they will not shut you off. They'll just slow it down to a crawl. Okay? The $80 plan gets you 5 gigabytes of tethering up to 6 devices along with it. So that part's not unlimited. You're limited to 5 gigabytes there, but your data is in fact unlimited. And that's why they're the Un-carrier, and it's very good. Plus, if you're on the higher end of the T-Mobile plans and you go to Europe, your data is free. And the phone calls are very reasonable. Now, the free data may be a little slower over in Europe because they're not giving you the highest, best data, but you could always get a chip over there. T-Mobile will finance your phone for you. Okay? So you're basically going to amortize, you can amortize the payments of the phone over 24 months if you wanted to. So, and they don't charge any interest or anything else. T-Mobile is the one making the push. I can't say enough good about it. I've been really, really happy with the experience. Sprint. Sprint was one of the first to come along with a lot of unlimited stuff. Sprint has many plans, but for $60 you get unlimited everything. But Sprint coverage is not the best. Okay? They're trying, but anyway. Verizon probably has the best coverage. There's places where it wouldn't have as much coverage, but Verizon, you get 2 gigabytes of data, so you're with this plan, because they don't have any unlimited plans or anything, what I did is I put in there, I based everything on a 2 gigabyte, because that's about an average throughout everything. So to compare apples to apples, oranges to oranges. The Verizon plan, if you go over your 2 gigabytes, they really get you. So don't go over. Buy the buckets of data you need, and you don't have to sign a new contract if you change your plan. If you know you're going to be out and using your data a lot, you can upgrade 1 month and then go back down and things like that. The one thing they will do if you go over 1 month and don't really know how, a lot of times they'll say, well, I'll tell you what, if you just buy a month's worth of the higher plan, we'll help you on that. And most of the carriers will do something like that. You know, the carriers realize, finally, the cost of acquiring a client or you as a customer is very expensive. So they are trying more and more to retain the customers they have, because that's money they're not having to spend to acquire. So, as bad as they are and they're doing things, but they're just, these were, both AT&T's and Verizon's plans were $30 more than this a year ago. So AT&T, that's the regular one, the $65 a month plan is 2 gigabytes, but that's their no service contract one. And then the 2-year plan is the 2-year commitment, because you get some subsidy on the phone that way. But all I'm going to do is, the best thing to do is, we're going to show at the end here, you go to this whistleout.com, you put in what you need, how much data you need, how many minutes you need, and it shows you your price on all the carriers. And it's up to date. Virgin Mobile. Virgin Mobile uses the Sprint network. They're actually they're wholly owned subsidiary of Sprint now, but these little carriers like Boost and others are what are called MVNOs, Mobile Virtual Network Operators. They buy buckets of data in time minutes from these cell phone companies and resell them to you. So they can be a little less. And in fact, AT&T has one. They own them now. And like I said, Virgin Mobile, Sprint owns. This price, 30, 40, and 50 on Virgin Mobile, you get 20, 1,200, and unlimited minutes. And you get unlimited data. But if you look here at Virgin, all plans include 2.5 gigabytes of data a month at high speed. And then after that, it will drop off, okay? And the video streaming speeds, you know, if they sense if it's video. In fact, it's quite interesting. I went to a Mac conference. It's a real techie Mac conference 2 weeks ago. I took the train down, which is great, the Capitol Corridor, and I had Wi-Fi in there, and it senses if it's video, it doesn't play. So they're able to sense that stuff. And this price, 30, 40, and 50, reflects a $5 discount if you set up auto pay with your credit card, so they don't have to bill you. So it's a pretty aggressive plan. Again, you have to deal with Sprint and their coverage. If you do between the two, I think you've got a better deal with T-Mobile there. Boost Mobile, I think Boost Mobile just got bought by somebody. You don't hear about them a lot. They're kind of, you know, all the little phone stores that are in the economically challenged areas and stuff. It's a pretty popular one with them. You do have to buy the phones outright with those also. Freedom Pop. Freedom Pop is pretty cool. The only thing they have, though, is an iPhone 5 right now. Because they use Wi-Fi calling and some other things. They use the Sprint network, but they also call over the Wi-Fi. So if you're at home and you have terrible coverage, it's okay because it goes over your Wi-Fi. Freedom Pop, you can get free 200 minutes a month, 500 texts, and a half a gigabyte or 500 megabytes of data for free. Okay? Al and I, we have some little Freedom Pop hotspots and things like that. They're pretty good, but it is something to think about. But again, they don't have the latest and greatest phone because it has to have the Wi-Fi calling. They do have a plan where it gets down to $6.67 a month. Instead of paying per month, you can pay for the year. It comes down. And unlimited, and it's 5 gigabytes of data. What they say, it's only the iPhone 5 for now. And it's an interesting thing, but I'm just not sure they're there yet. Okay? So, before we take a break, you guys have absorbed all this. I'm sure there's no questions. Go ahead.
Do you expect these plans to change once
So, the question is, do I expect the plans to change? I started setting this up over a week ago. 3 plans have changed since then. And I listened to Clark Howard and his podcast from the 3rd of September, said, yep, we got new rate plans out, and he's trying to keep up on it. So I'm going to show you to go to whistleout.com, and I think that's going to be, yes, the plans. Actually, I don't think the plans are going to change a lot between now and when the phone comes out. It's not necessary the phone's going to do it because as iPhone users are a little less price sensitive to these carriers than other people are. So I don't think anything's driven by that. It's just the downward pressure that people like T-Mobile and Virgin Mobile are putting on them to make better and better prices. When we come back from the break, I have family plans, and it's much clearer. Consumer cellular, I didn't put them on here, but I'm going to address that, yeah. Remind me after the break, and I'm going to also stop the recording.
Are we going to talk about senior plans?
All right. So did you all do your homework when you're at break there and get this all figured out here? All right. Clear as mud, right? So did any questions pop up? I mean, again, at the end, I'm going to show you mobile Whistle Out, and it's really a great place that does all this. But there's a big difference in carriers now, and thank goodness the prices are dropping dramatically. So one thing it's done is it's actually made the subsidized phone a little more pertinent with the 2-year contract because Verizon, not so much, but AT&T has dropped their prices on the programs pretty well. So if you are still with a Verizon or AT&T, go in and before the big rush happens September 19th, go in and have them analyze your plan, and they may have a plan that's more appropriate. So the first thing you do is analyze how much data you've been using, look at how many minutes you use, how many texts you use, and those become text and voice minutes become a little bit less of an issue going forward, but see how much data you use, and you might save yourself some money anyway and still be able to get a subsidized phone with a 2-year contract. And if they treat you well, what's wrong with a 2-year contract? And then I want to point out one thing. I had somebody come up during the break, and it's appropriate. First of all, he said T-Mobile has great customer service. His voice has been great, but he's had issues in a lot of places with T-Mobile on data. Okay? Now, I personally have my T-Mobile card on here, and I've been trying it in a lot of places, and it seems to work pretty well. But just, like everything else, be forewarned. And you know what? That's why I think that test drive is a great way to do it. Because, it used to be changing carriers was a huge commitment because it's a 2-year contract. You usually have 30 days to get out of it. That's another thing. But remember, the T-Mobile is no contract. You could get out of it at any time you want. And I forgot to mention, if you're in a contract and you have what's called an early termination fee, ETF, and it's usually prorated if you're 1 year into your contract. So it starts out at $325 to $375. If you sign up for a 2-year contract and 2 months later you say, I'm out of here, you're going to pay them money to get out of the contract because they've subsidized your phone. Now, T-Mobile will buy you out of that contract. And they'll take your phone, though, too, because they'll resell it, and you still have to buy a phone with them. But they make the transition easy. Al, go ahead.
If you jump out of you do an early termination route, give them the money, will they unlock it?
Yeah, at that point, you've satisfied your commitment with them. So the question was, will they unlock the phone at that point? My understanding is you've satisfied your commitment with them, so therefore they should unlock your phone for you. So that was a good question. So go ahead.
Are all these phones able to be unlocked? Is that part of the phone?
Yeah, in fact, they come unlocked, but if you've got a raw phone, they're unlocked. Like if you pay full price for a phone, it better be unlocked. Because you're locking into the carrier is because you've got that contract and that commitment. And at one point, and they've passed a law that makes sure when you satisfy your commitment that they have to be able to unlock it. But you had a poignant point. What was it?
I bought and I was told it was unlocked, and I tried to switch. It was not.
You had a T-Mobile phone to go to there.
I bought it from them, and they said, no, it's going to be unlocked, and then pretty soon the story changed. No, it's not. And it was paid for, but it was a pain.
But then they got it for you, yeah. So it's a little bit tougher if you're kind of still under the umbrella a little bit. But I know with AT&T, and a Verizon phone, if it's an iPhone 5 or newer, doesn't have to be unlocked because it's already unlocked. But with AT&T, once you do your 2-year commitment, then you can go online and you can do it, and they'll send a little code, and boom, you hook it into iTunes to your computer, and then boom, it's unlocked. So they've made it easy for that. And that what it is unlocked makes your phone more sellable. And why would people want to, we saw the values earlier on how much your phones are worth. Well, the reason is some people have lost their phone. They're still committed to some time, and they want to get a phone not on contract. So that's why your phone, your previous contract phone, is worth a lot to these people. Or secondly, if they go to a T-Mobile or a Boost Mobile or somewhere like that, where they have to purchase a phone at full price, well, they can purchase yours for less than that. So that's why the phones retain their value so well. The iPads don't retain the value. iPads retain their value fairly well, but not as much as the phone because there's never a contract on an iPad. Okay? Just like our Apple devices, we pay more up front for Apples, but in fact, we always have good resale value, and they last longer. So, when it all balances out, you're probably ahead of the game, but you pay a little more for it. But all in all, you get more for it. So, okay, can we go on to family? How many here are interested in family plans, 2 or more? Okay.
Senior plan.
Senior plan we're going to get to in a minute. Well, actually, senior plans, the other thing is, too, is don't be afraid to ask your carrier if they have a senior plan. Go into the store. Just ask them, you know, what's the worst thing you can say? No, we don't support old people. Yeah. Or, they're our best payers because they never change their plans. So, just basically, I tried to break this down. With T-Mobile, they have two different levels of data, okay? So they have, on the first plan there, you have, it's $50 for the first line, and you get 1 gig of data per line, unlimited talk and text, so we won't even talk about it. So the first phone's $50, the second phone is $30, so your total is $80 a month. Each line gets 1 gigabyte of data. Actually, it's more than that. Anyway, they're giving some bonuses right now. Then every additional phone is $10 a month, and each phone gets its own bit of data, okay? So that's a pretty inexpensive plan. When you look at it, you can go up to 10 phones. Now, the next step up from that is the $60 plan, where the first phone is $60 because you get 3 gigabytes of data per phone, and each subsequent one gets 30 gigs of data also, or 3 gigs of data, excuse me. Sprint has their Family plan. First phone's $100, each additional phone is $15, and it's unlimited, but it's limited to 2 gigabytes per phone, but I think one phone you can do more than that. T-Mobile still obviously offers their unlimited plan, where you go with the $80 a month for the first phone and then go on. Al, question?
When they define family plans, does that mean everyone under the same roof?
Okay, no. So the question was, does it mean everybody under the same roof? Well, we're all under the same roof, depending on what it is. We're all under the same roof right now. So Sprint has their Family plan. And what that is that's an interesting one, because they're saying, oh, just go find somebody and add them to your plan, and each individual is responsible for their own bill. Okay? My mom and I are on an AT&T Family plan. My mom just has this, I have a special SOS phone I got her that has a panic button on it that calls 911 and automatically turns into a speakerphone, but it's the regular phone the rest of the time. But the beauty of her and I being on the family plan is, 1 year I used my phone number to upgrade on my 2-year commitment on my iPhone, and then the next year she's eligible. She doesn't know it, but I use her number to get my iPhone. And at 90 years old, I don't know how much longer I can keep doing this, but for right now, it's working out great. And I do this only for you guys, so I can have the newest and the latest and greatest. So. But actually, in this situation, I do want to point this phone out because we're all getting older. But it's a phone. I got an unlocked phone. It was about $60 for her. I got it Fry's, but it's a regular cell phone. And it's on a regular cell phone plan. It'll work on T-Mobile or on AT&T. And it's unlocked, so I can put the card in and I pay for the phone right up at it. It's nothing fancy. It's not a smartphone. She's got an iPad for that. But it has a button on the back. You press and hold it for 3 seconds. It will let out a big noise. And at that point, then, it will text up to 5 people a pre-done text message. And it will also call 911. And it then becomes a hands-free speakerphone for two-way conversations. It's called a Just 5. And there's another Clear Call and some others like that. But it won't sense, hey, I've fallen, I can't get up. But if she's fallen and she can't get up, she can at least press and hold that for 3 seconds, and then it can call and do that. So it's a really unique thing. It's not a smartphone. Al?
Question about your circumstance there where you're leveraging your family plan with your mom and you're getting up to every year.
Leveraging sounds a little harsh, Al. I love my mother. I hope she doesn't hear this recording. Mom, she just had her 90th birthday, by the way. And that's the problem, is nothing gets by her. I got to be careful. She may be weak physically, but oh boy, she remembers what I did in 8th grade. Yeah.
When you do that, and say you're using her phone, her ability to acquire a new phone. What do? You take the SIM from your old one?
No. Okay. So I'll give you this, because to me it's an economical way to do this. So we have a family plan where we share minutes. None of us use all the minutes. I'm still on the unlimited, so that's why I'm not on one of these newfangled plans. and we share minutes. We don't use them all up. She doesn't text at all. I've got 200 texts on mine, or 1,000 texts or something anyway. But what happens is, my phone is eligible for an upgrade every other year. My line. So my iPhone is committed to 2 years on my phone. I'm committed to 2 years on that phone number. So when I go get the new iPhone, her line is eligible every other year. So I use her eligibility, and then my old iPhone, as long as the line stays active, it doesn't have to be a smartphone plan. As long as the line stays active, that's a 2-year commitment. So it's a little bit of a chink in the armor, which I, of course, researched and exploited it fully, just so. Not exploiting it for Mom, I'm exploiting AT&T, okay? Don't get me wrong here. But yeah, so what happens is, the commitment is that line is committed for 2 years. They're not saying it has to be a plan. And that brings it up. You can't have an iPhone without a data plan. No carriers allow that. But what happens is it just swaps back and forth. Like, my eligibility on my line is coming up at this point. But at 90 years old, I got to kind of look towards the future too. I'm going, a 2-year commitment. But I can always do an early termination fee, or if I decide to get out of it, T-Mobile will buy me out of my contract. So it's a way to do it. Oh, and all I pay is not $10 a month for her to have a secondary line on my phone. It's only $10 a month because it's a feature phone. It's just for voice. So when you add the numbers up, it might even be cost effective to have a second line you never use. But that's AT&T, Verizon, different ones do that. So, and that's where you get into these plans. You can see how incrementally, as you increase the number of lines, the price drops. Now, Sprint, with the friends and family plan, every person can be, you can have centralized billing, or if it's somebody you don't know that it's your neighbor and you want to give them a deal, you get a better deal. Hey, they can be responsible for their own billing and their own data, okay? That's where the relationship ends, and they don't have to be under the same roof. Every one of these other family plans, it's billed to one account, and that's how they save their money, and you don't have to be in it. My mom and I, thank goodness, don't live under the same roof. I'm one exit down the freeway, which is just far enough. Anyway, but we're on a family plan. They don't require that. My brother lives in Merced, and we've thought about it, but we've all kept our all unlimited plans, so there's no reason for us to merge it. But with AT&T now, they have some pretty aggressive plans for multiple lines. But since most of us are still on, my family has to make sure they consult with me before they do things. So I've kept them on the unlimited plan for my brother and his wife. But all of them will let you do it pretty much how you want. And if you have a large business, for instance, I have a friend, actually one of the interrupted calls we got here earlier, lives in Wisconsin. He works for Johnson Level. It's a company I was a sales rep for years ago. He's a Mac guy. He's in a PC environment. He's got his Mac on his desk there all the time. And they had a Verizon plan with, I'm not sure, I think they had 16 phones. And I'm on the phone with him one day. I go, because he's trying to get the new iPhone and updated, and he's having trouble with the IT guy. And Jim's just wanting the new iPhone. And I said, well, let me look at your plan for you. Well, after analyzing their plan, I saved them $600 a month. And they stayed with Verizon, and they got upgrades, and they did it because they just weren't on. They were on a legacy plan. So Jim's the hero now. I don't care about it. Go ahead.
I don't know if I missed something, but on that T-Mobile, the 3 gigabyte, each of the lines gets 3 gigabytes?
Yes. And so that's why you notice that price, each price is $10 more than the previous one. So you're paying $10 for 2 gigs of data per month. The difference between the top plan and the second plan is basically the amount of data you get. So if you've got low users, and by the way, I could have made this chart be 800 columns wide and down here, because each line you can say, I want 5 gigs on this line. I want unlimited this line. You have 1, 3, 5, 10, or unlimited per line. So, for instance, let's say my mom had a smartphone. I could say, well, give me a lot of data and give her just a little. Or you can share a bucket of data. So don't be out. I just wanted to give these as 2 examples because I was generally going around 2 gigabytes So I picked a 1 gigabyte plan and a 3 gigabyte plan, but you can mix and match within them. They have a chart for that, and I'm going to bring that up in a little bit. But anyway, when I see Verizon and then go Verizon Edge, the Edge plan means you're paying X amount of dollars extra per month so you can upgrade your phone every year instead of every 2 years. Okay. Yeah, it can get confusing. And then AT&T finally came out with a pretty aggressive plan, $160 for up to 4 phones, unlimited, and it's 2.5 gigabytes of text per line. I'm sorry, of data per line. So 10 gigs total on that. They've gotten pretty aggressive, but you know, it depends on if you need more than 2, then really analyze it. So those are family plans, and I'm sure there's no questions there. Again, when we go to whistle out, they'll let you configure it with what you want. So a lot of people ask about AARP. First of all, consumer cellular is very good. You can get iPhones with them now. They don't fit in this fancy little chart I have because they have too many choices. So if you go to consumercellular.com, you get to pick minutes. You get to pick text and data. So Chinese menu, one from column A, one from column B, and you figure out what you're doing. So realistically, because many of the elderly are still, you know, talking on the phone a lot more, so you pick a plan that you want there. So it's your voice plan plus your text and data plan, and that adds up to what your plan would be. And I believe AARP gets either 5 or I think it's 5 or 10% off per month on the consumer plan. This is the base plans. Consumer Cellular is quite good. I'm sorry, I don't know. Somebody could Google it to find out what carrier they use.
AT&T.
It's AT&T. Thank you. So and I've got good reports. A friend of mine who's a veterinarian has been using Consumer Cellular, and she's happy with it. So, are we there yet?
Is it any cheaper, Consumer Cellular?
Depends on how you buy it. You got choices. It could be cheaper. It could be more money. But you have to analyze yourself. It's your own. You have to go by what you need for voice, what you need for text, and what you need for data. And I'm sorry, it should be easier. But, you know, I like being able to pick and choose. I mean, I want to have a choice. We all talk about, you know, we have to buy all these cable channels and satellite channels that you never use.
But there's no contract.
No, none of the only ones that are contracts are Verizon and AT&T if you go with a 2-year contract, but there's different ones whether you're a contract or not. And with the contract, you can get a subsidized phone. Consumer Cellular, you've got to buy your phone outright. Okay? Now,
Ken,
yes?
on a subsidized phone in a 2-year contract, when you're done paying for the phone, does your monthly fee?
No. The question is when you're done paying, does the monthly fee go down? You might be able to negotiate it lower, but it depends on what's going on with it. But some of these plans, they actually just build in a price of the phone and amortize it over. Like T-Mobile, I don't think Sprint does it, but AT&T will say, okay, we'll finance the phone for you, which is kind of not paying up front. But generally speaking, in the past, it's not been wise to be on a subsidized phone because the contracts were so expensive. But it's one of those things, if you get a carrier that you like, analyze whether the 2-year commitment is going to be a benefit to you or not be a benefit to you. And again, you have to really analyze it over the cost of the phone, the cost of monthly fees, etc. And usually they're doing it for their best interest, not for your best interest. Question back here, and then I'll get to you.
One other thing, I know that AT&T also has a senior plan.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, as Ken pointed out.
The bill comes with really large text.
No, it doesn't. They send you a magnifying glass.
Yeah. Well, there's an app. There's a great app. It's called Magnify and Light. This, you can magnify. You know how hard it is to see the Apple serial numbers on stuff?
Yeah.
It's a free app, Magnify, and it's wonderful. And man, I'll tell you, it really does it. So they have a senior plan. And the other thing is, too, look, previous companies you may have worked for. There's a lot of these companies have corporate discounts. But, you know, and it's only if the plan's kind of overpriced to begin with. You don't find that with a lot of these others. You know, AARP, USAA might, AAA might, you know. I've actually looked into it of trying to establish a MacNexus.org as some sort of discount level thing that we can do, but the problem is we kind of don't have enough people, and we wouldn't be just one carrier like that, and definitely don't want to have centralized billing on that. So, but I've looked into it because I think it'd be neat to do, to just go and, hey, can we get a 5% discount? And so, you know, I'm looking into it, and I haven't gotten real far because it's kind of hitting the head up there. But why does somebody that works for Aerojet, for instance, get a better deal than us that are in the field and really evangelizing this stuff? So I'll bring up Whistle Out. It's whistleout.com. I'll show you in a sec. And you can go on mine. If you go to classes, all my videos will be there. But I'm going to post these charts. But remember, these charts were accurate as of last night. And they might not be accurate anymore. So if I go to Whistle Out. Oh, countdown. Okay. If I go, I have all right. So first, all the stuff I told you I'll have all them posted here. And then these are the videos. Click on Ken's classes. ClarkHoward.com is where I got a lot of my information from. I'll tell you, this guy, he used to be locally in Sacramento, well, on a radio station here locally. He's not anymore. I get his podcast, which means I don't have to listen to all those bloody commercials. ClarkHoward.com, and in your iPhone or your iPad or your Mac, subscribe to his podcasts. He is the nicest individual you'll ever come across. He's the most gracious. He's not, and it's all about your investments. It's about credit card rates. It's about cell phone plans. And he's not an Apple guy, but his wife and his daughter are. He's cheaper than I am. He's really cheap. But he's so informative and so, I mean, the guy, I retain a lot of stuff. This guy is amazing, no matter what the field. And he's not always perfect on his Mac and Apple stuff, but for all the stuff he covers, it's amazing. He is very, very good. And he's nice. And they even have a call-in thing where you can go, you know, you can get information from them. It's great about, you know, foreclosures, bankruptcy. Spend some time with him and subscribe to the podcast. I get nothing out of this. And he doesn't even, in fact, he never will advertise for anyone. If there's any ads, he doesn't even know about it. The ads just get sprinkled in there. He never, never, never gets paid to endorse anything. Okay? It's a pleasure to listen to. Now, I got to say, when I listen to it on my iPhone or my iPad, I subscribe to the podcast, so every time he has a new one, I do it in the car all the time. I'm listening to it while I'm driving. I listened to it this morning on the way here. But in your app, the podcast app, I can listen to them at 1.5 speed because it has that ability. And then it's weird. When I hear him live now, it sounds like he's had a stroke because I'm so used to listening to it. I'm used to listening to it. So, no, but that happens with everybody. I start listening to these. Double speed I can do, but it's a little bit too frenetic. But it doesn't sound like Alvin and the Chipmunks. It's an amazing thing. So I go through and I do my apps at or any of my podcasts at 1.5 speed, and you can hear what they're saying quite well. Unlike me, these people have a tendency to talk a lot slower. I talk too fast. So in the podcast app, they have a half speed. So ClarkHoward.com. This was one of the charts. This was updated on September 3rd. So these were the new plans. This is where I derived some of the information. You'll see it looks a little bit familiar, but I added some ones to it. He lists Republic Wireless. We can't do Republic Wireless with iPhones. Republic Wireless is a Wi-Fi calling thing. Right now it's Android-only phones. And see, he didn't list Verizon on the family plan, and he didn't list AT&T on the individual plan. So I ripped those out, and I did a whole bunch more. But that chart is going to change all the time. Now, Whistle Out. Now, I'm going to show you how to use Whistle Out, and we're not going to dig into any one specific plan, but what I'm going to do here, whistleout.com, I'm going to go to Start Comparing. So, this is going to, you don't have to have learned anything up to this point except how to go to Whistle Out, and if I click here and say Start Comparing, and I'll probably go with a neutral thing here. I'm going to say one, well, let's say 2 phone lines. And do I want to add a phone or bring my own? I'm not going to confuse this with phones right now, okay? So, how much usage do I want? Minutes? Well, we're trying to compare unlimited plans because that's kind of where we are. Texts, unlimited. Data is the one, well, what do I want to do? Let's go for a 2 gigabyte, and I've got 2 phones. And see, I can enter usage on the second phone. So we'll go, each phone is 2 gigabytes. Unlimited, unlimited. See how I'm doing this? Pretty tough, huh? Now, under data though, remember some of these places give you unlimited data, but then they slow you down after that. So I'm going to say, okay, it can throttle me is what it's called. It's like putting a governor on a car. It slows it down after you reach a certain cap. And we don't care about its currently with. So what we've got selected here is 2 phones. Forget this. We don't care about what it is. We're using unlimited text and minutes because that's kind of what most of the plans are, and we'll come back and adjust it. I'm saying 2 gigabytes per phone, and yes, after that, they can be throttled or even prior to it. So I'm going to say compare cell phones.
And the question, could you explain the difference between text, email, and data? Briefly?
Okay, so a text, well now here's what you, so email comes in over your data, your web browsing comes in over your data, your text messages, we used to always just pay the carrier for a text message, okay? And that was a separate bucket. You had voice, you had text, and you had data. But now, if you're on an iPhone, and the person you're texting is also on an iPhone, and you both use iMessage, it only uses your data. It doesn't use any of your text. If you have limited text, it doesn't use that. And those messages are such an infinitesimally small piece of data, don't worry about it. But you can always tell on your iPhone or your iPad, because you can text from your iPad, if someone has an Apple device, computer, etc., if they have iMessage, the texts that you send will be blue, or they're green. Photos can go over both, and photos take up a little bit of room. Let me see if I can get on here and I'll show you some different texts. Oh, sorry, I'll have to boost my phone back up. Hang on.
Does the computer off the iPhone automatically?
iMessage should be on by default, and once it knows it connects to another iOS device or a Mac, it will go to iMessage. And if iMessage fails, it comes up and says, would you, okay, I'm sorry, I can't do iMessage right now.
But do you click on that?
You don't have to click on it. It has, in your settings, it has to be on. But when you send it, come on, it's Apple, just send it. It'll figure it out. And if the person isn't on an iDevice, it'll automatically send it as a text. But if sometimes an iDevice to iDevice, the iMessage fails, it'll say you want to try it again, or you want to send it as a text message. But again, most of the plans we've looked at don't have limits on text messaging anymore. So it's become less of an issue. But back when we'd get, remember the old plans where you used to have 20 texts a month or something? Can you imagine the teenagers these days getting by on 20 texts a month? 20 texts a minute. I mean, there are hundreds. People are doing hundreds an hour. So it's become less of an issue. Let me see if I can get my phone displayed here. And okay. So if I go into my text messages, so here's from American Express. Oh, I haven't texted them, so it wouldn't be green. Okay, Tofi, my mom's caregiver. Those texts are green, okay? All right. Now, if I've sent my nephew, who is an iOS user because he's a Spencer, and it's in blue. Now, so I think Eileen, because you can go back and sometimes no. Anyway, if it's green, it went as a text. If it's blue, it went as an iMessage. So you saw the difference. Okay. Shirley Seamy, just has an iPad. She doesn't have an iPhone. She's just got a regular phone, but she can send me an iMessage, and you can send and receive from your iMac also. And with iOS 8 and Yosemite, believe it or not, I can be sitting in front of my computer, my phone can be in the other room, and it'll show up on my screen and say, Al Trivet is calling you. Would you like to answer it? And I'll be able to answer it on my computer, but it'll still be going through my phone. That's part of what's called handoffs, and it's amazing. You have to have Yosemite, and you have to have iOS 8. All right, so I hope that answered your text question. It was a very, very good question. So here's what happened with our results. So for 2 phones with AT&T or with T-Mobile, you get, and see they said 6 gigs per phone. We had said give us 2 gigabytes per phone. Remember, the T-Mobile had a 1 and a 3 gigabyte thing. So it's $100 a month. Looks like a little more on there because it's giving you 3 gigs of data. Cricket, Metro. The problem with some of these is you have to be careful whether the iPhone can be used or not. Go on down here. See, then you get into the unlimited, Sprint, US Cellular, which is up like in Oregon. AT&T Mobile Share, $120 a month. I don't see Verizon yet. There, Verizon. $150 a month for 2 gigs. So I'm not going to belabor this because you need to build your own plan and do comparisons. Okay? You can get as confused as you want. So, I'm sorry? Yeah. And I'll go, what? So, well, oh, no, I've already built in the excuse. Oh, that plan changed. It's like when I sign my emails with this was transcribed by Siri, so at this point anything from here on, if it's wrong, it's not my fault, it's Siri. So I can say whatever I want now, and I have absolution. All right, let me just go through some of these quickly. I've got some links like T-Mobile makes it pretty easy. You click on family, you click on individual, and then you go down, and remember I said, so if I go with family plan, oh, that's actually the next screen. Oop, nope, that's AT&T. So if I go family, I go down here and I say 3 lines, for instance, and then on each line I can choose how much data I want for each phone. See, there's the first phone. Well, the second phone, oh yeah, they use a lot of data. I'm going to go there. And it reflects the price over here. And again, think of your data as a bucket of data. A lot of the plans let everybody in your family plan share the data, or each phone can have its specific amount of data. But you're buying buckets of data, okay? And that's where their pricing is. AT&T makes it no less complex, but they have these cute little sliders. You can select your device, smartphone, and they have some different plans. I've got this in my footnotes on those charts. But again, you just got to go through. And what I recommend doing is working it up here a little, or go to the carrier that you're thinking about first, have them analyze your data, tell you what they have, and then you can go back and study it and compare it to other people. Because once you know how much data you're using with your current carrier, then you can make an educated choice. It's like if I'm looking for an electric car, and I know the Tesla gets 250 miles on a recharge and a Nissan Leaf gets about 40 miles on a recharge, and I know that I have to drive 100 miles a day, which am I going to, I've limited myself out of the range of the Leaf. Okay? So, only because I love Teslas.
I was at Costco and I said, what if I buy a plan and phone here at Costco? How much would I save over this from buying it at the store, which my son has been taking me to? He said $80.
You'll say, okay, so the question is, if you go, no matter where you remember I said, first of all, you're going to save sales tax if you go to Walmart, Sam's Club, or Costco, and the price of the phone will vary to some of these too. I had somebody call me the other day. They said, yeah, we don't need to get the new ones. My wife and son, I need to get them a phone. They're heading to New York. We're going to get them the 5S. And he says, yeah, I see on here AT&T or somebody has refurbished ones available for $99. And I said, well, you know what? If you spend $99 on a refurbished, and usually if it's from those companies, it's okay, not perfect. And I said, well, but you're going to pay $650 in tax probably. Or I'm sorry, you're going to be taxed based on $650, about $60 or $50, $60. And I said, but I'll tell you what, why don't you go check with Walmart, Sam's Club, and Costco and see. And he got an iPhone 5S, and on these two phones, his initial output, I saved him about $80 on those phones he went to Costco, I think it was. So because of the tax, but also he got a new phone instead of a refurbished. All right. Now, Apple does have a refurbished store, and I should point this out every class I do. I encourage everybody to go to apple.com, go to store, and then go all the way down, and you see refurbished and clearance. Everybody see my cursor since I don't have a laser? And this is where you can get refurbished things from Apple. You're not going to find phones here very often, if at all, but let's just go refurbished Mac. You can get iPads in here. And they carry the full warranty as new. The same warranty as new. And in fact, when you get these, you can't tell it's not new. And in fact, most of the time it is new. Because when Apple, have you ever seen any old models at the Apple Store? Do you think the day they introduce a new item that all of a sudden everything disappears? No, it goes back to the refurb store and they sell it, or it's a special order item that never got shipped or things like that. These don't come in the fancy Apple box when they ship it to you, but it comes in a plain white box and everything's in there. I always encourage friends and family to do it. I don't take my own medicine because I have to buy it the day it comes out. So, for you. I do this for you. All right, so anyway, that's there. And they always have that's full warranties, and it's really good. And it kind of tells you what the savings is, because Apple inherently, when they bring out a new product, they keep the price about the same, but it's got a little bit more speed and a little bit more bells and whistles and things. And actually, that brings up a point is, well, when I buy an iPhone or an iPad, yeah, Ken, you're talking about the size, but what about the internal storage? Well, more and more, we're using more of the internal storage on our devices because originally these were designed as consumption devices. They're now becoming more and more creative devices. And sometime early next year, we're going to have an app in here called Photos. By the way, iPhoto will no longer be supported. It'll still work, but iPhoto is going away because we're going to have an app called Photos from Apple that is exactly the same here as it is here. And the beauty of it is, so how many of you have two Macs? Okay? And when you work with Photos, the problem is if you upload photos to one Mac, it doesn't show up on the other one, and you make all these additions. Or if you upload your photos to your iPad, they don't show up over there. And you do all this work on them, you make albums and everything, and the only thing that comes over are the raw photos. The new Photos app will allow you to upload to here, do some work, title them, do some effects and different things like that. And via the cloud, it will automatically, so don't do nude photos, it's going to be via the cloud. But don't do nude photos, it's on the cloud anyway. That goes back to anyway. All right, so it'll go over and it'll sync with here. So if I make a change to a photo, it'll make it change on my Mac or on my other Mac. So they're all, just like when you make changes with your address book right now, they get synced across all your devices. Your Photos app will have that built in. And that's going to probably cause me to want to have more room on here, but I think the way Apple's going to do it is they're not going to make it so all of your photos aren't here. You can bring them down from the cloud. So therefore, you might need a little more bandwidth, data, and you might want a little more storage. And again, like I said before, don't think what you need now, think what you're going to need 2 years from now when you buy things. Generally speaking, on the iPhone and the iPad, every upgrade in storage is $100 more. 16 gig was $199 subsidized at the store for an iPhone 5S, $299 for a 32 gig, double it again, another $100 to a 64 gig. Okay? And its apps take up room. Apps are pretty small when you think about it. It's amazing how small they are. Anyway, here's the Verizon very uncomplicated plan. Oh, and you know what? This should bring up coverage. So now this is at the Verizon site. So it's not biased at all. Verizon has the best overall coverage. The others are catching up with it, and there's this new thing that the new iPhone will support, which is voice over LTE data network. So what's happening is we'll be able to use the data for our calling, like for Wi-Fi and everything else. But in fact, the LTE network, that's a type of signal, has better reach. So the same tower can reach more people and in fact reach farther. But AT&T's coverage, you know, it works well. So here's the deal. Up until I think the new iPhone, if you're on Verizon or Sprint, you can make phone calls or you can be on the internet, but you can't do both at the same time. Because the data and the voice, it's one or the other on their system, the CDMA. Now, going forward, that's going to change. And remember, if you're at home on your Wi-Fi, that's doing your data for you, so the phone calls would still come in. And like I always say as an AT&T customer, and on AT&T, I just can't make phone calls at all. So this is Sprint's LTE coverage, but don't let that throw you because they have older 3G coverage and a lot of it. And the T-Mobile coverage is improving all the time, but we've had some couple examples of where T-Mobile has not issues with voice, but issues with data. So again, but the best part of it is remember, you're not making a long-term commitment. Okay, if you go with some of these non-contract carriers. But anyway, that gives you an idea. And this is just AT&T's LTE 4G coverage. It's not showing you what they have for 3G. So LTE is just one. They're showing these maps because they've got more LTE coverage than these people do. And the reason they have more LTE coverage is because their CDMA is going the way of the dinosaur and they've had to upgrade their towers to LTE because it's the future. LTE stands for long-term evolution. How's that for a name for cellular?
Hey, Ken?
Yes.
Looking at that map up there, it looks like it shows no coverage in the Sierras and Yosemite.
Area 51.
I remember about 18 or 19 years ago, my daughter had her...
But not LTE.
Oh, but 18 years ago, she made a call from the Valley floor there to a friend in San Diego, and I was blown away.
That's on CDMA.
Oh, okay.
This is LTE coverage.
Oh.
Sprint's not showing you the other maps for like voice and everything because they wouldn't be as outstanding.
Oh, I see.
Okay? Now, also, we haven't talked about Straight Talk. Straight Talk Mobile is at Walmart. You can buy SIM cards for all the different carriers and stuff, and you never know which carrier you're going to get with it, but when you look at the color of the map, this will be yellow or green. When you look at the color of map, then you realize which carrier they're talking about. So Straight Talk Mobile is a pretty good deal, but it gets into the weeds on some other stuff, but not any customer service. Go ahead.
What is the policy of these carriers on keeping your telephone number when you change from one carrier?
Great question. So what's the question about your phone number when you change carriers? You pay a surcharge on your phone bill every time, which everybody's got their hand in and making money on it, and you have what's called number portability. We now have that with our landlines, but we've had it for a long time with cell phones. So when you change carriers, you are able to bring your phone over. Now, when you do change carriers, if you do, the best way is bring a copy of your old bill because your street name has to be spelled exactly right. Everything has to be in there for it to happen smoothly, and it happens electronically, and it can happen within minutes or it can take 3 days. In the meantime, your old phone would work, and then at some point it'll stop working and the new line will work. But it's usually pretty quick. But bring the bill with you. Now, the other thing that brings up is like for instance, my nephew is on with my brother, and he's not an authorized user, so he can't just go in and get a phone. I mean, he's an adult. He just graduated from Sac State, but they just don't have him on the account that way. So it has to be the authorized, because they're signing a contract, right? So it has to be the person that is authorized on the account, but you can add people to be authorized on the account to make those changes. It's amazing how secure some of these cell phone websites are. I mean, it's harder for me to get in there than it is to get into my bank or my investment websites. It's crazy. It's like, come on, I just want to go see what my usage is. But that's a great question. But you have number portability. And in fact, a lot of people are ending their home phones. You can port your T-Mobile wants to use. I don't want to use my location. All right. Sorry about the interlude there. We're back on track. So your number portability is something that's quite easy to do. But you can, if you have special needs or things, let me know. Just looking at some other plans I have bookmarked here. Failed to open page. Which one's that one? Virgin Mobile. There you go. So this is Virgin Mobile. The prices I said, you get a $5 discount if you sign up for auto pay. Now, most of the carriers like Virgin Mobile, Boost Mobile, and all those other carriers don't necessarily have family plans, but each individual phone stands on its own. But here's a compare us to our competitors. Of course, they're going to make it look in the best light they can, but let's go here. We're going to select a phone. Well, we don't care about the phone. Well, we'll just go here, select an Apple 5S. We're going to select a plan. Well, we wanted the $35 a month, 300 minutes, 2.5 gigs of data. That sounds about good. And then versus AT&T. Over 2 years, there's a marked difference. Okay? That pays for that phone that you're going to pay you're going to pay $450 more for the phone, but look how much you're saving over time. Now again, these may not be, let's compare it to T-Mobile. Oh, that's because it's 3 gig. Interesting. But you got to play with these. Everybody's going to cast themselves in the best light possible, so you can always verify that. Again, go find out what you need. Here's Boost Mobile. They got purchased by one of the carriers. I don't know which one. Consumer Cellular. They kind of have a neat thing where you buy the phone. They have some easy pay where you pay $150 down. But if I go here, let's check their plans. So consumer is text and data plans. Looks like our typical MacNexus demographic there, right? Except, wait a minute, that's a flip phone. No, that's a Windows group. All right, so you go here, here's your text and data. You can select the plan, you put it in there, and you go here and you have your voice plans. And basically you'll add it up and see what's going on. And as I said, I think AARP gets 5% off. And the last one that failed to open. Oh, this was Freedom Pop. Freedom Pop's kind of hard to find. Use the charts I did. It's hard to find their rates and stuff. But you actually can have free service if you use very limited. And it's using the Sprint network. It's using Wi-Fi most of the time and the Sprint network. So because Sprint's coverage isn't the greatest, you may have issues with that. All right. Come on, there's got to be questions because this is crystal clear, right? Go ahead.
To port my number, I had a different experience with AT&T. I was on T-Mobile, and I went online because I get so much garbage on the phone. So I went online, choose my plan, $45, and the next day, Express, FedEx, I got the SIM card, put it in.
Yeah.
I didn't have to talk to you.
Yeah, you don't have to. You can do it online. And, I mean, in fact, like, for instance, coming up on September 19th, you can go wait in line. We all had to pay our dues at one point. Or you can go to a store, wait in line. You can order online. Last year, you ordered that day, and it was to you in a couple days. Or you can go to the Apple store, you can go to the others. The other thing is, some of these stores, like the Costco's and the Walmarts and stuff, they may only have the 16 gigabyte model. They may not have all the colors. They're not going to have the depth that some of the other places will. Best Buy's been pretty good. Please don't tell anybody, but last year I snuck in, and at 5 minutes before midnight, I was able to order for in-store pickup while everybody else is ordering to have it delivered or going and waiting in line. I said, this says it's available for in-store pickup. And since I was teaching a class at Renaissance that day, of course, for them, I made sure that I got the new iPhone. And I was able to pick it up at the Best Buy. And it was really pretty cool. I just went in, I'd already billed my credit card. I got in. There was a bit of a line there, but it was no big deal. In fact, I was really kind of pissed off because it says the store opens at 10. Well, it turns out that day they'd been open since 8. And I was sitting at home just waiting. Come on, 10 o'clock, got to come. I got to go get my phone, you know. And I could have been there before that. And they almost messed up because, and I originally wanted a 64 gigabyte, but the 32 was the only one available. And they had they'd over allocated with the phones they actually had in stock at that point. So Best Buy in-store pickup, but you won't get the sales tax savings. So question back here, and I'll come over here.
On the new operating system coming, what is the top couple of features that you're aware of?
You know, it's interesting. So the question is, in the new operating system for the phone, I assume the iOS 8, it's a huge update, but you won't see a lot of it. What it's doing is a couple of things. You know, apps are what's really made the iPhone so much more than it was ever conceived what it could do. You know, from heart rates to emergency room doctors being able to look in on their patients, or intensive care doctors, different things like that. The apps are so much of what it is. What they've finally done is they're letting the app developers use some of the things, like instead of just using Siri for the built-in calendar or reminders apps and things, we may be able to use Siri for Google Maps, or maybe be able to use Siri for other things, like search Amazon for this, and it can tie into their app. So the ability for the apps to, and talk to other apps and really leverage that, we're going to see, because the crowd of these app developers have done some pretty amazing things with the restrictions they have, and believe me, the restrictions they've had are very good, but Apple's first thing is security. They don't want Credit Karma to go in and see what somebody else is doing or things like that. So this whole opening it up but still making it secure has been very difficult. The ability to do handoffs, I can be at my iPhone and I can be typing an email, and as I walk up to my iPad or my Mac, that whole thing shows up there, and I can continue going from right there. It's called handoffs. There's a site, actually here's what I encourage you to do, because it can do it much better than I can, apple.com, and I'll just put in iOS 8. iOS 8 preview, learn more. And this goes through a lot of it. And there's some great videos. The new Photos app. Messages, that's not so much. Oh, one huge thing is we'll be able to have custom keyboards. I don't know if you've ever seen the keyboard that you can just sit there and hold your finger on it, and you hover, you just move it to each letter and it spells what you want. As you type, it will suggest the next word that you might need, or you put a T and it says timetable. It looks at your email locally, not over the web. It looks at your email and says you're responding to something about a timetable. Well, if you start typing TI, it suggests maybe, and you tap down there. The ability to have different types of keyboards. These developers have some neat keyboards. The ability to possibly put numbers on a top row so you don't have to flip back and forth between your keyboards. So this is huge, and but if you think, okay, it's a different keyboard. You know, what you got to understand is this original iPhone, I put it away. When it came out, Steve Ballmer said of the previous, he's now the owner of the Clippers, yeah. From one insane guy to another. Anyway, and that's the extent of my sports knowledge if it's not about hockey. But actually, yeah, how insane, he made $2 billion selling the team, okay? Ballmer said, the iPhone will never do well because it doesn't have a physical keyboard. Oh, well. And you know, part of the reason they did that is, I don't know if you're aware of it, but virtually every language is already built in here, and there's languages for those keyboards are built into it from scratch. Because think about this. Does Apple know if they're shipping this to Switzerland, Swahili, South America, Japan, Canada, where you know everything has a U in it, right? It's all built in, and you can change them around in whatever language you want. So it makes it international, and they only have to really make one device for everywhere. And it's software-based, because then they can do these changes on these keyboards. You know, if you've ever noticed, when you go to Safari, if you're typing in a web address in Safari, there's no space bar, because you can't put a space in a web address. The keyboard adjusts to where you are.
Ken, is it wise to bring a landline over to your device? Because once you do that, every solicitor in the world has that phone number.
That's your choice. So let me tell you a couple reasons why you wouldn't, first off.
Yeah.
The old wire going to your house is very good for alarm companies. If you disable your home phone and you go cellular, the alarm companies can put a box on there and make it go cellular, which is great, because then the thief we all hear about doesn't come up to your house and cut your alarm system before they enter in. So a cellular backup is good. Some of the other things don't communicate well that way. Faxes don't do too well. But the thing is that those solicitors are coming all the time anyway. And when that comes up, please, you guys, tell your friends, well, they're not your friends if they're on Windows, but feel sorry for these Windows people when they get the call and says, I'm from Microsoft, and your computer is showing errors. And I'm in India, and it sounds like it, but my name is Bob, and you want me to fix that? Well, I was at my mom's last night, sitting there working away on this. At 8:57 p.m., he's, for the 5th time, dialing this 90-year-old lady, who she knows from me. She said to her, I don't have a computer, I have an iPad. Bye. So I hear her doing this, and I pick up in the den, and I pick up and say, look, I'm an Apple technician, and what you're doing to elderly people is absurd, and you need to stop it. Don't call here again. And he kind of like, oh, okay. And it's like, it's a scam. It's a scam. Now, if she hadn't have said that, I would have gone on and played with the guy. I would have said, oh, yeah, okay, can you log in? I'll take as much time from him as I can, because if I'm taking a lot of his time, he can't go get some helpless victim. But it's a total scam. So your best answer is, I'm on a Mac. You can't hurt me. Sorry.
I've gotten about 10 of those. They all have a foreign accent.
Yeah, but it comes from, it's faked as a local number, and they're from Microsoft, of course. Because they say if they're not going to call saying they're from Apple. So you guys, those are phishing schemes, and what that is it's actually quite severe, because if they get onto a PC, they ask to share your screen, which makes it really bad, because I share screens with you guys all the time, so now it feels like I'm calling in the middle of the night with a funny accent. But they get on your screen. They'll do a couple things. They may try to steal your email password. Or, if you're on a PC, they can plant ransomware. And ransomware is exactly what it sounds like. Okay, we've locked your computer. Pay us $169 and we'll give you your data back. And if you have ransomware on your computer and you're on a PC, and again on a Mac, you don't have to worry. On an iPad or an iPhone, you don't have to worry. Not true on Android, not true on PCs. If it's locked up, even the virus protection guys can't get that stuff back, and they can't unlock that data. So the first story is make sure you have a good backup, but second is don't use those things. Buy a Mac. Yeah, right. I mean, really. And it's really happening because people get fed up with it. But that ransomware stuff, that's just terrible. And, well, can't the police do anything? No. They're in Russia. They're in India. Okay? I mean, sorry. Interpol is not going out and taking care of this stuff. So, yes, your solicitors would follow you. But in the iPhone, you have call blocking. And you know what? And I hate to be this way, because I'm a pretty amiable person, but if I see an unknown number here, I won't answer. Life's too short. if they can't do me the courtesy, and I finally turned it off on my mom so I can see hers when she calls, because if I'm with a client and mom's 90 years old, if a call comes in from mom, I better be, make sure everything's okay. And it's usually, wow, did you hear about this? Or she tells me the latest Apple rumors. But it's a good and a bad with that. But you can take a landline over to it if you care to. The other thing you might want to do is you can take your landline, turn off all your long distance, and do only paid for distance calls. You get 20 free calls a month or whatever, and you can drop that price down to about $30 and use your cell phone for everything. Or go buy an UMA. An UMA phone that you plug into your internet, and you make free calls anywhere in the U.S., and you pay about $350 a month. It's the taxes is all you pay. You pay about $129 for the device, and it's now a phone line. It only works when the internet works, but its call quality is fantastic, and it's really, really good. And you pay for the device one time, and then all you pay for. They used to do it free per month, but now they do it where it's around Sacramento. It's about $3.50 a month, which is just the taxes for all those stupid taxes. And you can make all your calls with that.
And you put your old landline on.
You can port it over to it, yeah, but what I tell people, do try it out first, and if it turns, because they're going to give you a free number, and then you pay like $10 or $15 to have your number ported to it. So I'd wait with your old solid landline. But remember, if you can call out for free, you can take your wired landline all the way down to almost nothing, and then you're going to be paying less in the long run. So let's go back iOS 8. Family sharing, this is really cool. If you have multiple people trying to buy apps and everything else, if you have grandkids or kids that are sharing an account, the nice thing is now a mom can, if the kid wants to buy an app or something, or if they're upgrading and they want to do this, a little message comes up on the screen and says, Johnny, hey, has he done his homework lately? He wants to buy this app for $2. Is that okay? And you can authorize it or not authorize it there. And you can even say, you know what? Johnny needs to go do his homework. Let's turn him off for right now. So, iCloud Drive, this is huge. How many are Dropbox users? Less of you will be Dropbox users after the fact. You'll be able to buy space on Apple's iCloud Drive. Health Kit, this is huge. It's not talked about much. It'll have the ability. Now, again, privacy is a concern, but remember, with the HIPAA regulation and everything, they've got it so it'll work, is you could set, like, let's say you were on blood pressure medicine, and you had a blood pressure cuff in here, and it'll say, okay, you need to take your thing, and it'll chart it out for you. And it also can be set that, hey, if it exceeds a certain threshold, let the doctor know. And then the doctor says, well, and that the best thing, because look, you go into the doctor's office, you take your blood pressure there, it's like either, usually it's a little bit accelerated because the white coats, my blood pressure, I don't want it to show high again. I really don't want my blood pressure to show high this time. And it's all spiked, right? But when you're at the house, you can take it, it's lower. So the doctor can chart it, but it doesn't automatically send it. You can set the thresholds. Kaiser's going to work with this, some of the others, so it'll all tie in really well together with the records management. You still have control out of everything it does, but the nice thing is it says anything above this, if you want it to, I'll send this to the doctor. Blood glucose, a lot of these different things. Health Kit is going to be huge, and I'll tell you, it's really, really, really good. We talked about the handoffs and connected. Spotlight, just better search. Wait till you see what the app developers do next. What was I skipped at the very beginning here, probably?
Question.
Go ahead.
I went online yesterday. A lot of cameras and the Android phones, you bump them and share. Cameras, you can move your new pictures over to a computer. And I read that the iOS 8 will have that.
So the iOS 8 will have AirDrop and allow you don't have to bump. I mean, look, there's everybody, there's kind of that distance thing, the old people that get right up in your face, back up a little here. So you can do it to nearby people. do you have, can you, I'm going to try share something with Al here. Let me see if I can get on the network. You'll have AirDrop. And right now it doesn't work from the iPad, iOS device to the Mac, but that'll happen in the new one. But let me see if I can get, it's online here. Actually, I'll just do it to my phone. Okay, so I'm on my iPad here, and I'm going to go to a location. I'm going to go to my current location, and I'm going to share this. Selected location. And then up top where it says AirDrop, I can tell AirDrop to just share with people that are in my address book, people that are nearby. That Ken that popped up is my iPhone. So instead of texting it or emailing it, I sit and boom, I can send a file, I can send a photo, whatever I want via AirDrop, and it'll show up on my other device. There's Pete. Pete's in my address book. And then when he gets it, it says Ken wants to send you something, okay or not. You don't have to accept it. So Pete's 4 rooms down. I didn't have to run down there and bump with Pete to get it to happen. There are apps that allow you to do bump, but I know that's like the old railroad thing where the trains are going at one another. Me and Pete bumping into each other. Yeah. So in the middle of Utah, you know. Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. Thank you. It'll be recorded too.
That Pete is me.
Huh?
I just disconnected.
That was you?
Yeah.
Did you buy Pete's old iPhone?
I'm Pete with his
Oh, you got Pete. Okay. Got it. So that was him and turned it off. So that's AirDrop, and that's the sharing. And so it'll do what Bump does, but a little bit more gracefully because it's kind of the Apple way. But the big thing is moving my files from here to here will be able to be AirDrop. It was promised last year, but it just didn't come to fruition to make it from the Mac to the PC or to the Mac to the thing. And the iCloud drive we were talking about too has got tons of storage. Any other questions? We've got a few more minutes to go ahead.
Do you project that you're going to fire out the bugs in the 6 and then introduce the 6?
Yeah, real good question. So are they going to iron out the bugs in the 6 and then head out? You know what? They always say never buy the first year of a car. And there's been a few cases where it probably wasn't a good idea to buy the first year of certain Apple products. But I look at history and I look at their track record. First of all, because virtually everything can be updated software-wise. You know AntennaGate, right? Remember, well, the iPhone 4? Yeah, the iPhone 4, if you try to make calls, it'll won't, and it'll block out the antenna, and then they had all these videos. Well, it turns out every other phone also did the same thing because your hand is probably not the best way to conduct things going across it. And yeah, there were some issues with it, but it was way blown out of proportion. And that's a hardware issue they couldn't necessarily fix. They tweaked it a little bit. But when you get the software updates for your phone, it's not just the software. They can update the firmware. So in other words, it's kind of like you have an electric keypad at your house that you do with your code on it to open your garage door. You can go in and change that number. You're changing the firmware, and you're updating what's inside it. Same thing here. Those things can happen remotely and do most of it. There's very few hardware things they can't fix. And I have to tell you, it's a very pertinent question, but when you look at opening weekend, Apple will probably ship 15 to 30 million devices because we might have new iPads too. And you're only going to hear about the bad stories. You're only going to hear the ones that didn't work. But you know what? And they keep it so secretive and so cloistered. It's amazing. You know, the leaks have come out. And the reason the leaks come out is because these Chinese factories, you know, a little bit of screen will be here. And they're starting to go through the channel because these places are going to have replacement parts. And yeah, it's like opening the presents before Christmas. I hate that. But you know what? There's always stuff in it. But I applaud Apple with how well they test this stuff before it comes out. Because, and again, they had never produced an iPhone when they or a phone when they produced their first iPhone. And to this day, the design and the concept is still there. And Samsung, they've had 12 iterations probably. Because, it's harder when you try to copy. Or in their case, they try to anticipate what's going to go on. Oh, and we didn't even talk about it. There's likely, okay, so the iPhone 6 is going to get introduced in 3 days, right? And we're starting to see some trickle in on it. The original iPhone was introduced on my birthday, January 9th, 2007, and it didn't come out till June 29th. Now, Apple doesn't pre-announce anything updates to existing products, but what did Apple have to lose by saying, okay, in January we're going to put a phone out in June? They knew leaks would come out. It gave them a chance to test it, get some feedback, and it made it so nobody else is buying phones for those 6 months because they're not going to buy the Samsung Blackjack or any of those other things because the iPhone's coming out. It's called the Osborne effect. Does anybody remember Osborne Computer?
Oh my God.
Adam Osborne had the Osborne computer, and they said, we've got this, and I wasn't into computing at that time, but they said, we've got this new thing coming out. It's going to be out this fall, and it's going to do everything, the latest and the greatest. So, current Osborne computers stopped selling. Therefore, they couldn't afford to fund making the latest and greatest. And that's the reason we never had the latest and the greatest. Okay, so it's their fault that we've never had that. Well, the iPhone, the iPad was introduced a few months before it became available. And we're talking about wearables. Now, the iPhone 6, and it's amazing. Everything's up all in the internet right now about, wow, nobody's able to ship anything from China right now because Apple has basically sequestered all of the shipping available from China to here for all of this stuff. The other companies can't get anything over here right now. I mean, because they're kind of a big player, so they kind of have a little bit of weight. And but we're probably going to get introduced to a wearable. It might be an iWatch. It might be something totally different, and we really think it's going to be there. And the beauty of it is, nothing's leaked out on it. Just like the original iPhone, nothing had leaked. Because Apple can say now, and yes, it'll be available in February or something like that. They're going to let you know what's coming because they're not cannibalizing their own sales. 2 months ago, if they told us what the iPhone 6 was, it would have cannibalized iPhone 5 sales. They're not doing it to get back at anybody, and everybody knows the routine, but what they're doing is they're going to cannibalize all other watches that are out there. LG has a neat watch, Moto has a neat watch, but Apple just, when they do stuff, they do it right. Now, the first iteration, like the first iPhone was a little bit, and the next one was it was good, but they changed a lot of things in the second one. The original iPad was not, it was great, but man, the iPad 2 really did something. They're already working on iWatch version 3. We know. Well, we don't know, we assume. So whatever's going to come out, and the watch may be part of this sensor, it's part of this tying in with everything. I got a text. It's really rude at a restaurant to go like this, but it's not rude to just, okay, I don't have to worry about that one. So it may be an extension of our other things. With Siri, I could dictate to it. Dick Tracy, or the Secret Service. Yeah, he's on the go. Go get him, So we're gonna have something like that. There may be something done with Apple TV. The broadcast networks, that's the hardest thing to crack. But, they're really, they say this is the biggest release ever. So we'll see what happens. But, and you'll see iOS 8. Now, they showed us iOS 8 back at the WWDC. They've disclosed a lot of stuff, but they always keep some stuff under wraps. They had to disclose it in June because the people that make the apps have to develop for the new operating system. So they disclosed what they did. Then the stuff that the developers aren't involved with, the stuff that's Apple-only stuff, is what we'll see during that presentation. And it'll be available live and then usually in the afternoon sometime it'll be available for download. And you know what? I mean, it's Christmas for me when this stuff happens because, and you know, it's easy. The way they portray it, it really makes it a lot. I mean, they just walk you through it. And the weird thing is, there's so much other stuff behind the scenes down deep that happens that you just don't even know. Go ahead.
What I heard was that the iPhone will have a point of pay feature.
Oh yeah, so that's a great question. So Apple has resisted what's called an NFC, near field communication. It's the chips so the mobile pay pass, when you go buy it, you can scan it in.
Yeah.
But it looks like Apple's been working with American Express, MasterCard, Visa, CVS, Walgreens, and all those. And this is why your Apple iPhone or your Apple ID password is very important to be secure, because Apple has the largest database of credit cards of anyone. So simply you could just go up and pay for your groceries. Like, how many have bought with their phone at the Apple Store? Have you used that Apple? Okay, so here, the Apple Store app, it's great. You walk in, and you go in and you do a pre-order if you want. That's usually not it, but I'll come in and I'll see, oh, there's an Airport Extreme up here, $199, right? So I go in and I use the app and I scan it. It's got my information. It says, okay, and you say okay, and then you just walk out the door. But I'll tell you, something in my mind is like, I don't want him to think I'm a shoplifter. So as I leave the store to the concierge and I go, man, the iPhone app is really cool. I like it. Because I feel like I shouldn't just be able to walk out of the place. It's like,
Are you even gonna put it in a bag?
yeah. But what's funny is they did catch a guy, and it was interesting, but he had put it in but never checked out. And so as he's walking out, they say, oh, did you pay for that? And they were able to tell somehow. And oh, well, yeah, you mean I have to? So it was, but yeah, it's amazing. And that's what we're going to get to with this stuff. And with this near field communication, also it's going to make it very secure, because now I can take this and put it by here and it instantly recognizes it. And it says, hey, this computer is trusted with this device. So therefore, I have a lot of this handoff and stuff I can do that I couldn't do if I take it and put it by somebody else's machine. It's going to open up tremendous amount of things. And not only is it going to make things easier, it's going to make more secure. Believe it or not, we all talked about this Home Depot credit card thing. It's playing into Apple's hand. Because how would you like to just go up to Home Depot and not tap it, I'm not bumping it, just run it by and off you go. We can all feel like shoplifters.
Well, do you have a product?
Huh?
I say, do you have a product?
A product.
If you just go up there and tap it.
It's a near field communicator. It has to be within a certain distance, and it senses the radio waves and just goes. The other thing they're doing is these things called iBeacons they can put in stores, believe it or not. This sounds intrusive, but it's really not. So I'm at Costco going along, and I see that this printer, and there's an HP printer there. If there's an iBeacon there, I look at my device and it says, would you like to know more about this product? And then you go see a video on how that printer works and what ink it is and things like that. So it's all-knowing, but it's not, I mean, if it's with Apple, it's safe and it's secure. Apple does not sell your data to anyone. They don't need to. They're the largest company in the world. They don't make their money like Google selling this type of information. Okay?
Any chance they'll be able to cross the Golden Gate Bridge or the Bay Bridge with that technology?
The Golden Gate Bridge, you can already get by without paying a toll.
I know, but
They send it to you.
you get
But
it.
yes, there is a chance, but you know what? We're talking Caltrans.
Yeah.
So about the time that rusts through the vaults and the thing goes down, they'll have it available. But I gotta say, the Amtrak, the Capital Corridor, I just put my ticket up on here and they scan it and it does great. I mean, yeah, but no, you surely could. They already have it with the Fast Pass. They want to keep control of that. Because, if Apple transacts something, they're going to make a little money on the side to handle that. So that's why the Fast Track does it. But yeah, no, it opens up a whole world of possibilities. It could be when I get, a doctor could have it, and when I get near this machine, he's the only one that can get the information off of it. So all your health stuff is really sacred and secret. So, all right, I'll stop the